Welcome one and all. It's time for yet another red hot, spicy Warhammer the Old World tournament report. War for the Old World GT7 from the TSN Arena. Chaos Warriors are back. Fresh from their 5 wins, 0 losses debut at the previous tournament. How do you improve on perfection? The answer is you can't, but you can tweak perfection in subtle ways. So let's find out how I've done that and whether I can continue the chaotic hot streak. There is the army. Looks very similar to the army from last time. It doesn't have any different models in it yet, but there are some changes that have been made. And this event, going into it, when the lists were revealed, I thought this is going to be exciting because there are some armies there that I didn't actually face at the previous event. The previous one, I played against dwarves. There was some Skaven, high elves. I got a bit of a variety of armies, empire, and there were some that just weren't represented at that event for whatever reason though. There were no Bretonnians, for example, so looking forward to trying out this list against them. Because people were saying that had I come up against Bretonnians more, then I could have had more issues at the first event with the list, because obviously they've got lots of annoying, very fast, skirmishy type units that can stay out of the charge arc of, for example, dragons and still threaten things, and they can take a character who's very good at killing dragons as well, apparently. So we'll see if I face any of those, because there were 3 Bretonnians at this event. There are also 2 Wood Elves, which are quite tricky as well, with all their long range and fast skirmishy units, and several Warriors of Chaos as well, so we could end up with a mirror match, which I also didn't have at the first event. So what have I done? You'll notice immediately that the Dragon Ogres have been split from 2 units into 3, and this is the biggest change in the list. The reason for that, I just felt like I didn't have enough units at the previous one. I didn't have enough drops. So, this Dragon Ogre has now become a lone Shartak with the blackened plate, I think it's called. Yeah, there we go. The blackened plate, which gives him a 2+ save. So that's good. Then we've got a small unit of 2 Dragon Ogres with heavy armor, great weapons, and a unit of 3 with heavy armor, great weapons. No Shartak, no unit champions in these 2, because what I was finding is that the thing that they don't want to fight when they have a champion is a dragon, because it gets into a challenge with the champion, kills it, and then the other 2 can't punch back, and they just lose the combat by too much, run away and die. So my thinking is if they don't have a champion, a dragon would be hesitant to charge into 3, I think, because in order to take down 2 Dragon Ogres, that's probably the spot where a dragon would feel comfortable if they're only fighting 1. So in order to take down 2 from this unit, you would need to do 8 unsaved wounds. And if you're mostly on, let's say, -2 AP, they're still going to be on a 5+ save, the Dragon Ogres. So that's tricky to get 8 wounds through. And if there's 2 of them hitting you back, you might actually be slightly concerned. So I'm thinking that without anyone to challenge out, that's quite a scary prospect. I've still got the Shartak running around, and the unit of 2, I'll just do my best to keep them away from the bigger threats, because obviously it's a slightly smaller unit. Maybe send them after enemy chaff and such. The dragon is still there. Oh, we've got some people in the chat already. Dark Horse says, good morning. I'm going to assume that you're in a part of the world where it is the morning and that you haven't lost your mind. And we've got Saurus Blood. Looking forward to seeing how your Warriors of Yellow Hand are doing. They are the yellow-handed warriors, and anyone who calls them washing up gloves will be besmoten by the Chaos Gods immediately. Dark Horse down under, apparently. That does make sense time-wise. So, the Chaos Lord, how is he different this time? Well, he doesn't have a magic weapon anymore. He's got a flail, just a boring old flail in the shape of a sword. So you get the extra strength in the first round of combat, and after that, no extra strength. But it's cheap, and that frees up points. So, the other things I've done with him, I've given him Acid Ichor, or Ichor, I think it's Ichor, surely. Then that means if he's in a challenge, which he's usually going to be in, any wound he takes then that'll bounce back a strength 4 hit at AP 2 onto the enemy. And he's obviously got Crown of Everlasting Conquest, Enchanting Aura, so he's got the triple save. He's got the 3+5+5+ saves, and if he's in combat, it'll be onto a 4+ base armor save because he's going to be using his flail with both hands probably, depending on the opponent. He might not necessarily need to. And then he's also got the Strike Last aura onto the enemy units that he's in combat with, or remove Strike First, which is often almost the same thing. And then, what else has he got? A single Favour of the Gods reroll to try and stop him becoming stupid. We'll see if that works. A healing potion, which seems like a no-brainer, because the wounds are incredibly difficult to take off this dragon. It's got 10 of them to start with, and if you ever do take off 3, just drink that healing potion, get D3 back immediately. So I'm planning to sup that the instant he takes 2 wounds rather than waiting till 3. So it's going to be very difficult to kill this guy. And also a brazen collar to give him magic resistance 2. Because the potential weaknesses in this list could be slowing down some of the expensive units with magic. So magic resistance 2 on the dragon. Sorcerer Lord. Oh yeah, Mark of Nurgle on both the characters, including the Sorcerer Lord. So the Sorcerer, who you can see at the front of the Warriors unit here. Let's see if we've got a nice close-up of them. There we go, you can see him there. The Hero Quest Evil Sorcerer. He has the Demonology Lore, Lore Familiar and Spell Familiar, so an extra spell and choosing the spells. 1 Favour of the Gods reroll, Ruby Ring of Ruin for Fireball, Poisonous Slime for poison attacks if he gets into a fight. And Demonology, I just like that Lore of Magic. The ability to make your unit fly around. The summoning magic missile is really good as well, combined with the Ruby Ring, so you've got 2 magic missiles to use. And there are some nice combat buffs as well. If this unit wants to get into combat, Chaos Warriors with only 1 attack each, it's not that scary, but if you put the buff on them that gives them 2 attacks each, and bonuses to strength and toughness and things like that, suddenly quite scary. Then, what else has he got? I think that's everything for him. Then we've got the 5 Chaos Knights. So, previously I ran them as Khorne, and they were being led all over the place with the Frenzy. So no more Khorne, they're now Undivided, which is the same for the Chaos Warriors. So, that's useful because it means you can reroll failed Panic, Terror or Fear checks. And Panic is something that could potentially hit the units, especially if the characters don't get bonuses to their leadership on the Eye of the Gods. We've got Steve in the chat. Welcome. Steve is, of course, the benefactor of the dragon. So always welcome in the live chat is Steve. Dark Horse says, solid dragon build, probably don't need the Ichor. Yeah, probably, but I don't have that many models available yet. So I'm actually making the heroes as expensive as possible to make up for the fact that I haven't got anything else ready yet. There are going to be chariots ready soon, and I'm looking at some other things, because there are in fact some 2,600 point tournaments coming up soon as well, so I need to get some more stuff done there. I think my core is already maybe almost to that level that is required anyway, with the Chaos Knights and the Warriors. So what else do the Knights have? They have the Icon of Darkness for -1 to shoot at them. That seemed to work well last time. Keeps them a bit safer because they are quite fragile with their low number of wounds. Then we've got the Chaos Warriors, 26, not 27 this time, so there's one small gap at the back of the movement tray. And that was because as I was finishing off the last few points on things, there was just a couple of points I wanted to get an upgrade for the unit, and just decided to chop out one of the Chaos Warriors. Shouldn't make too much of a difference, 26 or 27, hopefully, we'll see. And it's one of those things that happens in list building, when you get down to it and you've got like 4 points left, it's not enough for an item. So you think, well, if I just chop one guy out of a unit, then suddenly I can afford the item again. And the Chaos Warriors have the War Banner to give them the extra combat res. And the Champion has 2 things actually, a Charmed Shield for a one-off 5+ ward save, which I was thinking would be useful in challenges, and also potentially useful against anything that's big and scary. and wants to face off this unit on its own. He takes the challenge, and then maybe he can prevent being maximum overkilled by having a small ward save. How about that? And then he's also got a brazen collar, same as the Chaos Lord, so a magic resistance 2 on this unit as well. I have not gone for the Infernal Puppet in this list, by the way. I'm still resisting the urge, but if I get totally whooped by magic at some point, I would consider putting it in. Just looking at it, I feel morally opposed to it, because it just looks so anti-fun. But some would argue that a triple save dragon is the same thing. So, it just seems like it's shutting down fun in the game rather than creating fun. And I don't think an armor save is necessarily shutting down fun, as much as making people fail all their spells is anti-fun. It's like the way people used to look at dwarves in 8th edition when they could take the rune of balance that would steal people's magic dice, and then just all the auto dispels that they had available. So I just don't like the puppet. We'll see how it goes though. I may end up using it if magic is just too much of a problem at some point. Then we've got the Dragon Ogres, which I already mentioned, Unit 3, the Shartak on his own. With the zoom in, you can see there's a tiny little hair attached to his horn there. Probably from one of his victims, and then the Unit of 2. So that is the entire army. And in the first round here, against Wood Elves in open battle. So, I'm going to pull up the Wood Elf list now, because Wood Elves are one of the armies that I was told could be an issue for the Chaos list, because they're very elusive. They don't necessarily stay there and let you charge them. So you have to kind of corral them and try and tempt them to take bait and leave them in a spot where you can charge them. So let's see if I can pull that off. The enemy list, which I will go through now, we have... Let's get to the characters, because we've got a dragon, which isn't a very good picture of the dragon there, but there'll be better pictures of all the armies later on as well. A Glade Lord on a dragon, on a forest dragon, talisman of protection, healing potion, armour of meteoric iron, an annoyance of nettlings, and a resplendence of luminescence. So, the gist of that is that it has armour that can't be modified. I think it's just a 5+ save and a 5+ ward that can never get any worse. So it's essentially just 2 ward saves back to back. And what if you've got something that just says armor saves are not allowed? Does that mean you don't get that one? Because it's not really modifying the armor save or reducing it, it's just not letting you have it. There are some things in the game that just don't allow an armor save, so I assume that would prevent the armor of meteoric iron from having a save as well. Dark Horse says, Puppet forces your own whiz to be in dispel range itself too, so if throwing fireballs, it's probably better not to have it stay out of dispel range. That's always something to consider as well. If you're going to be trying to shut down the enemy magic, your wizard is often going to have to be in range to have that done to them as well. Then we've got, there is a Spell Weaver and a Spell Singer, who are, oh there's a better picture of the dragon. There we go, another classic metal dragon, and we just saw actually that this dragon is coming back on the Warhammer community article, this classic Wood Elf, so that automatically makes it one of the candidates for any army that's looking for a classic dragon, because it's one of the only ones that's available. There was, I don't know if the Orc Wyvern is still available or whether that was just made to order. I don't know whether this guy is going to be made to order, but it is coming back in metal apparently. So I can see this being converted to Chaos for a few people. It does look quite sinister, doesn't it? And the spellcasters, they're both on Elven Steeds, so I think they are in this unit at the back here, which is hiding. So the Spell Weaver has the Ruby Ring of Ruin and Illusion, and the Spell Singer has Elementalism and a Power Scroll. The Spell Weaver has the Earthing Rod. So the Spell Weaver is much more expensive and is a level 4. The Spell Singer is a level 2. 8 Glade Riders with longbows and cavalry spears and reserve move, which is going to be this unit here that they're hanging out in, because they can move up, do their thing, and then reserve move away again. Dark Horse says that is the best dragon model. I still have it too, 30-year-old model. It definitely is up there. This Wood Elf Dragon is one of the best. I actually thought it got slightly worse when they re-released it with 2 people riding on it instead of 1. I thought that one looked a bit silly. But I really like the original version where it's just the 1 rider. Definitely up there with Egrim van Horstman and Azhag the Slaughterer Wyvern and the 90s zombie dragon. Not the green zombie dragon from the box art, by the way, the pale zombie dragon that you can see at the start of the exhibition in Warhammer World. The very pale one I thought was very nice. And what else have we got? We've got 5 Glaive Guard, which are, I think they're compulsory, you have to take Glaive Guard, but they're obviously not very good because everyone just takes them in 5s. Then there are 2 units of 9 Deepwood Scouts, 8 Wild Riders, and then 8 more Deepwood Scouts, and a Great Eagle. So, what is my concern here? Look at that blurry human hand. My concern would be scouts, potentially, which is why I've gone quite wide. I don't want anything just popping up next to me and me having to turn around and deal with them. My Chaos Warrior block doesn't mind doing that because I've got a sorcerer in there with 2 magic missiles, so it wouldn't be too bad. But I also don't want to get flanked by anything, and I don't want to have to use my dragon to babysit all my other units constantly to stop them being flanked. I want to be out there trying to kill things with it. So I put 2 Dragon Ogres on the flank, just staring into the flank. So if anything wants to come over here, it'll have to be a little bit cautious, not go too quickly. Otherwise, I'd just be able to charge. And hopefully, wherever it ends up, I could then like hide from it a bit and buy myself another turn. So they're just a delaying force. And over here, we've got my Chaos Knights up against these cavalry here, who I believe are frenzied. Yeah, I think it's frenzy rather than impetuous. Frenzied cavalry. And I don't particularly want my knights to get charged by them, because I think the knights would get killed, but we've got Dragon Ogres over here, so that would be acceptable. My dragon would ideally like to get into a showdown with the enemy dragon, but you can't really control whether that happens or not. If you have a dragon and the enemy does, if the enemy really doesn't want to fight you, they don't have to, because dragons are so fast, but they're also not able to spin round and charge off in any direction like certain Bretonnian heroes can. So you can just hide from each other if one of the dragons doesn't feel like engaging. It might take one of the or both of them out of the game, but it can be done. You can just avoid. So we'll see if the enemy dragon wants a piece of my dragon at all. Scatter the Wind says, agreed, the best version is the OG rider on the throne, definitely. Dark Horse, unit of 2 could have been split into singles 2 360 charge arc. 2 Dragon Ogres are you talking about? Would a Dragon Ogre become a 360 charge arc when it's on its own? Is that what you're talking about? Dragon Ogres, unit of 2? Because I've got 1 Shartak. You saying my Shartak should have had a 360 charge arc? Because I certainly didn't play it that way. And no one ever corrected me. Well, I'll wait for official confirmation from the wisdom of the chat. But if that's correct, then Saurus Blood says they don't get 360 vision. Okay. So we've got conflicting reports coming in from the field there. What type of units do get 360 vision? Is it only units that skirmish? Dark Horse says Monstrous Cav. I feel like everyone would just run multiple Shartaks if that was the case, because that would be very powerful. So I'm not entirely convinced yet. So I'll let you two argue about it in there. And I will continue, and then I'll refer back in a minute, once we've settled that dispute, as people are diving for their rulebooks now. So, we're going to find out who goes first. If I go first, my plan is going to be to move my Dragon Ogres into range to get charged by these frenzied cavalry, because Dragon Ogres can survive that. And then move my knights away so they can't charge me. And just advance and try and tempt something to come out and attack me so the dragon can kill something. We shall see. And Martin says only characters which a unit champion isn't. Oh, that's put a cat amongst the rules pigeons there. So, who do Chaos have access to with a 360 charge? Will says only characters become skirmishers when they're on their own. Dragon Ogres have the close order rule, so they don't. That seems consistent with how I've seen it played as well. if you take a character on, what is it you can put them on? A demonic mount, the Chaos, do they get a 360 charge arc? I haven't looked too much into them because I don't really have a model to represent them yet. So I do get the first turn, and I put Steed of Shadows. So with Demonic Vigor, I cast that first usually because it's a buff to movement. So if I fail to cast Steed of Shadows, it means I can still move a little bit further. So obviously if my wizard was wounded, for example, I wouldn't be casting this many spells unnecessarily, because it would only give me an extra inch of movement if I fail to cast Steed of Shadows. But early on in the game it's fine. And with my magic missiles, I whittle down some of these scouts. Managed to kill all but 2 of them, which is not a great amount to leave alive because they'll run away and hide probably now. And then I move my Dragon Ogres into range, so these cavalry here have to charge me. It's on the end of their charge, so they might not make it, which would be great if they don't, because then I can double charge them. If they do make it, I'm confident the Dragon Ogres can survive a round against them. They've got plenty of wounds, and I'm going to be able to hit back, hopefully with 2 if one of them gets killed. Will says, character on Demonic Mount gets 360 arc. Very fun. Okay, that might be fun to try, actually, because models that are available to me with my personal rule of no models beyond 1998 in the army means that Arbol the Undefeated is about the size of a Demonic Mount, I think. What size base does a Demonic Mount go on? Is it a full, like, Dragon Ogre size base, or is it more cavalry sized? Because I haven't looked into them yet. So, killed off some scouts in the first turn and just set up for next time. You can see that I've got my warriors with the dragon behind. What I'm trying to do is, I'm not being charged by the dragon yet. What I want to do eventually is get something tempted into charging my warriors, and then, because it's fighting them, they then, for example, fall back in good order after combat through the dragon, and then the thing that's fighting them crashes into the dragon, or is then in the view of my dragon. That would be great. I've put my Shartak up there, just hanging out next to the warriors, and the 2 Dragon Ogres decide, actually, you know what, we don't really need to protect this flank, because it looks like the enemy are focused kind of in this area, rather than down the flank. So I'm actually going to go out there and just threaten those scouts and try and make them run away. And hopefully, because these cavalry were the things I was mostly concerned about during deployment for the Dragon Ogres, it's unit of 2 rather than the unit of 3. A unit of 2 I think would be in trouble against that unit, but 3 I'm a bit more confident. Minimum 40 by 60, maximum 50 by 75, so it could go on a Dragon Ogre base then. So that would be interesting for Arbol the Undefeated, because he's a really cool model, and you see those on eBay fairly often. Not necessarily complete ones, so that would be a good one for a Demonic Mount. And the issue is obviously that you can't fly on a Demonic Mount, can you? So the enemy cavalry do get into the Dragon Ogres with the charge, so we'll see if they... Oh, nice upside down picture of them there. Enemy dragon. So it was initially going to go here, and my opponent wisely changed his mind and moved the dragon back there. Because here, that would be an issue, because that would be within charge range of my dragon. And I would immediately take that charge if it was open, because you can't really risk fleeing, because it's very close to the board edge there. So as it stands, I can't charge it with my dragon because it's too far away. I can't really charge it with my Dragon Ogres, I don't think. I think it's a bit far for that as well. So they are in a position where I can start setting up, trying to bait the enemy dragon into a fight so I can then go and attack it. So we'll see if I can set that up on my turn. We've got a column of crystal right there, which is blocking view to these guys with the 2 mages in that unit. And the eagle has just got out of everyone's charge arc, which I can live with. I'm not too concerned about the eagle yet. Until actually I hear about its stats and realise, actually, it's not bad. It could kill a couple of Chaos Knights if it gets into them. So I'm a bit concerned about Chaos Knights being charged by an eagle. Everything else, not too bothered about it. You can see some wounds have been done here. This Dragon Ogre's only got 1 wound left on it after the various shooting attacks. There's some scouts, there's some more on the hill, and this dragon has got a bow as well. and into combat. So 1.5 Dragon Ogres down, and then I swing back and kill, how many is that? 4 of the cavalry in retaliation. So that's very good. I lose the combat slightly and just give ground, I think. So I can now into the side with the Chaos Knights, who have lost 1 to the archers up there. You can see there's only 4 in the unit now. So it's about to get crunchy and spicy. My turn 2. So I moved my Chaos Warriors up into the forest there, so I can cast magic missiles through into the units. Dragon behind them. And I want the enemy dragon to charge me. And then hopefully I get to fight it. Now, what I could do is move out this way. But if we look at where the dragon was, my dragon's here. I don't think I can get here and then also turn. I don't think I've got enough movement to get there and turn this way to stare back at the Chaos Warriors. And if I just move here and stare at the enemy dragon, it thinks, oh, I don't want to fight you, but I wouldn't mind fighting the Chaos Warriors now that you're not staring at them. So I'll just go over there. So I am having to use the dragon to babysit this unit. And I think it is one of the weaknesses of the Chaos Warriors as a unit. They're just not that strong. With a wizard in there, this is over 700 points, this unit. So, losing that, and I think a dragon would beat them. The first round of combat, it would eat the champion, probably. So it might not necessarily win the first round. Probably would, but it might not, because I do have the Charmed Shield. And I've got a decent static combat resolution of 5 in the unit. Second round, I would either have to start losing warriors or sacrifice the wizard, who's 330 points. So a dragon is not what I want to be fighting this unit, so I would rather scare the dragon away by having my dragon here. So if you want to come in, I'll eat you. If you want to charge somebody else, that's even better, because then you're not attacking what I consider a vulnerable unit to dragons. I think I got my Dragon Ogres outside of its charge arc, actually, because I don't want it just having an easy snack down there. You can see that my knights did charge in, and they've overrun past those enemy knights that they killed. And so he killed 4. I think I actually chased down, there's probably 1 left that I chased down. And the Dragon Ogres overran as well, because they want to go after the archers in the top left, which you'll see in a wide shot. There we go. I don't want my knights chasing them down, because there's only 4 wounds in that unit. The Dragon Ogres, of course, have got 5 wounds left in the unit, which is slightly more. And I would rather chase them down with the Dragon Ogres for that reason. Because obviously, every time you do a wound, you kill a knight as well, whereas with the Dragon Ogres, you've got to do multiple wounds to this guy to totally kill him before you actually kill him. And the Shartak is just hanging out over here outside of the range of this dragon, because again, that's another thing you don't want to be charged by a dragon. Shartak maybe slightly can hold up a bit more to a dragon, because he's got 2-up save. So against most dragony things, they're -2, aren't they? So mostly on 4-up saves with 4 wounds. So you've got a reasonable chance of surviving a round, maybe, against a dragon. Not too ridiculous. It could just be the stomps that finish you off, though. So, into the enemy turn, and the dragon decides to go into the warriors, which I am kind of pleased about, but there are dilemmas that run through my mind here. Because I couldn't move my dragon out to the side without it being dodged, with it being behind, it does present one small issue. If I don't lose the combat badly enough, then I would end up giving ground, which nudges me into the dragon, which means that I can't charge the enemy dragon with my dragon, because there's not enough space. So, there's a sweet spot for how much I want to lose by. I want to lose the combat, or win the combat would be great, obviously, because the enemy dragon might flee, and I could chase after it. But if I'm going to lose, you want to lose by not just 1, because then you're likely to give ground. You want to lose by a couple, or maybe like 3, so you're most likely to just fall back in good order, which would take me through my dragon and leave the enemy dragon in my path. Now, I don't know whether I've got this calculated right either. Maybe my dragon should have been more towards the centre for this to be perfect. But the direction of flight would be kind of like that. So if I fall back in good order, I'd go through my dragon, enemy dragon would go through this way. So I think in this situation I've probably got it a bit wrong, because of the direction of the pursuit anyway. But in general, if you're here, you want to fall back in good order through your own unit. The enemy then plows into the thing it doesn't want to fight. That is the plan. The Honest Wargamer in the chat, the best channel. That is true, actually. Although I would put the Honest Wargamer and the Square-based channels somewhere in the top 10, definitely. I think that's fair. Yes, visibly Riley, Egrim does fly again. Unless I fight Bretonnians, in which case flying is generally off the menu with that horrible horn. So, you can see that the Dragon Ogre out on this side, on the right, now no longer has a friend who's been shot down with all these horrible Wood Elf bows. And not much is being done in the middle yet, or on the left here, because we've got the two Dragon Ogres still intact and the Knights still intact, moving in on the enemy. And you can see that the dragon has taken a wound. Shocking, breaking news. A longbow, I think it was a longbow, could have been a magic spell, but probably a bow, has done a wound to the dragon with 3 saves. Hold the front page. In combat, my choices are, let the dragon just chomp on the unit. But because I've got the positioning of this dragon slightly wrong, because I don't have it central enough, because the pursuit would go kind of that way, so it could end up just getting out of my charge arc regardless, I decide the best thing to do is sacrifice the unit champion now, try and maybe win or draw the combat and win with a musician. So we'll see if the Charmed Shield saves that, but you can see actually it does not quite work. The dragon does exactly the right number of wounds, because I know it would cap at that many anyway, I think. But it still did the exact number of wounds to hit the maximum. It didn't get overkill beyond the overkill, if that makes sense. So it does win by 1, so I give ground into the dragon, which is mildly annoying. But if I had the dragon positioned correctly, in a position where the enemy dragon couldn't overrun and avoid me, then I'd be more tempted to refuse the challenge, lose more of them, lose the combat by more, and then be more likely to fall back in good order through my own unit. There's also the option of sacrificing the sorcerer, because he has a 5+ ward save, so he's more likely to avoid overkill, but also because he's got 3 wounds, there's a chance for potential high overkill as well, which isn't nice. So it's a tough dilemma, and this unit is vulnerable to this kind of thing. So, you Chaos players out there, how do you build a brick of Chaos Warriors that can stand up to a dragon? What do you put in there? Is there a way to get the combat res even higher, other than just a BSB? Which also gives you another character that you could maybe throw into challenges. What kind of character build would you put in there to make dragons less of an issue for this type of unit that doesn't worry about too much else? There's not a lot of stuff out there that just whomps 26 Chaos Warriors and a Sorcerer. Easily, anyway. Especially when they can fly 24 inches potentially on my turn and avoid repeated attacks from certain things. So, what would you do, Chaos players? One for the comments. So, you can also see that I've got, it looks like a 6 on the Eye of the Gods there, which is the good one, which is Strength and Leadership, I think. Into my turn. So, my dragon decides that actually now is the time to reposition yourself, because we're close enough to the enemy dragon. I can get myself into a spot where I can view the enemy dragon, and if it wants to charge into the Chaos Warriors again, there's no way of it getting out of my sight. So, maybe it won't, but you can also see that in the combat this time, I sacrificed the Sorcerer. Because my thinking was, the ward save, my best chance of holding the dragon in this position and winning the combat is, I think, if I sacrifice the Sorcerer. If I don't, I lose enough so the dragon does not have to stay in combat. Because if I'm losing, I'm backing up, and the dragon is not. Which means that the dragon can then flap away on its own turn. I decide if I use the Sorcerer, if I make a few ward saves, then suddenly I could actually win the combat. And therefore I could force the dragon to stay put for a round. And then it's going to be kind of stuck, so it's definitely going to get charged by my dragon. But the issue with this Chaos Warrior build, with this unit, is that it's a unit that's really good at surviving for 1 round against a dragon. Which is really, in Warhammer, the old world, it's the worst number of rounds to survive. Because if you survive 1 round of combat against the enemy, then that means that on the next turn, which presumably is going to be, let's say if you charge into the enemy, it's very unlikely you're going to charge into a dragon, then surviving one round is not that great because it's going to be their turn next. Actually, yeah, that is good. You want to time it, you see, so that when your turn comes up, the enemy is standing there. You don't want them standing there when it's their own turn. So in this instance, the enemy dragon initiated combat on its own turn, didn't kill them. If it totally wiped them out, then that means it's standing there waiting for me to charge it. But the fact that I've survived one extra round and lost combat again means that the enemy can now avoid going into me to follow up, and now can just fly away somewhere else and avoid my dragon. I think you can understand what I'm saying. You want something that's either going to die really fast or survive at least a few rounds. So you don't want the enemy free to do what they want on their own turn. You want them to be free on your turn so you can attack them and shoot them and charge them. We've got some more in the chat. Let's have a look. Pablo says, really nice looking armies. Old school touch in Warhammer the Old World is what I enjoy. That's what I like as well. The old school stuff. Some people, it's not everyone's cup of tea because some people didn't necessarily grow up with it reading White Dwarf magazine in the mid-90s. But those were the golden days as far as I'm concerned. Saurus Blood says, BSB or just drop the Lord on Dragon and put him on foot with the Dragon Slaying Sword. And 3 saves. The issue with that is that that is a very expensive unit that no one would ever touch, I think. And that would be an issue. They're less likely to be able to chase someone down than a dragon is in that instance. Let's see. Visibly Riley. Love that forest dragon. Still haven't got around to painting mine. It's one of the dragons I always wanted to own. So the fact that there aren't a lot of dragons available right now that are within my rules, which is 1998 or earlier, means that that one being re-released is going to tempt me to buy it as a Chaos Dragon of some kind. I could do with another one as a Warp Fire Dragon. I don't know whether the Wood Elf Forest Dragon is particularly open to being converted into a Warp Fire Dragon, but it could be interesting as an option. Dark Horse says, don't drop Dragon. Yeah, I would be very hesitant to do that. Nuke Man says, Sorcerer with Doppelganger and Dragon Slayer Sword. Could be interesting. I'm going to collate all these ideas and then try and conjure up something that can deal with this kind of problem, because I'm limited in what I'm doing with my own dragon because I'm countering this enemy dragon. I've put my knights outside of the eagle's charge because they can't really do anything right now, so I'd rather they just didn't get charged by an eagle yet. My dragon ogres on the left have moved towards the archers. The Shartak has moved towards these archers. And that is the end of my turn. So you can see the sorcerer sacrificing himself didn't help. I still lost the combat. And I just didn't make my ward saves with the sorcerer, unfortunately. Had I made a few and even drawn the combat, that would lock the dragon in place, which means I can then charge it in the flank with my dragon immediately, which would have been amazing. But alas, and by immediately, of course, I would have to survive the next turn for it to be in that exact position. But my thinking was that if I was still in combat, then on the enemy turn it would still be fighting me. It may well win, but it's probably not going to kill the whole unit yet, and probably going to end up pushing them back to about here, in which case I still charge it. Turn 3 for the enemy. We've got more archers moving around from the lone dragon ogre on the right and putting Plague of Rust on it with the wizard, which is very cruel. The wizard and the cavalry unit just keep popping up onto the hill, firing off and then moving back again. So the enemy dragon decides to charge the Shartak, who was turned away in disgust, but also because the dragon's tongue is just too pokey and was going to hit the axe and something would probably snap off. I just turned the Shartak away a little bit so they don't have to touch, because touching is gross, as we know. Everyone running away from the Dragon Ogre as best they can. And with Plague of Rust, will that be enough to kill him? The archers on the left, because they're skirmishers, they don't have to stay there and get charged by Dragon Ogres, they can just go around them. And really, when you're close order and you're chasing after skirmishers, it is a struggle. So if they don't want to fight you, they don't have to. And the Dragon Ogre on the right is dead. There is a tree pops up in front of my Chaos Warriors as well, which isn't very nice. My Shartak actually does wounds to the enemy dragon before it dies as well. And then it overruns, but it only overruns about 4 inches with a Swift Stride. Which means that, yeah, there it is, it's a 4. So it's barely made any distance at all, and we get the old laser out. And we determine that despite this tree being here, my dragon can just about see the enemy dragon. So I do have a rear charge on the enemy dragon available to me next turn. I'm in difficult terrain, so that is going to make it slightly harder, but it's not impossible. And now we're into my turn. You can see that the Chaos Knights are charging the dragon as well, and my dragon charges into the rear. But the Knights make the charge, the dragon does not. So you can see I needed 2 more inches on the charge. So if the Swift Stride had been a 5, or if one of these dice, well, if the 2 had been a 4, because you take the lowest from being in difficult terrain, if that had been a 4, or if that had been a 5, we would have been in business. That would have been a successful rear charge into the enemy dragon, and I think from that point I just win. But because it's failed, the Knights are now stuck in a fight with the enemy dragon, and that's not going to go well for them. But you can see they're doing some wounds. Dragon Ogres spin round to face those archers again until they move out of my charge arc again. And you can see the laser on the table that we borrowed from the table next door to make sure my dragon could see the enemy dragon. And yeah, so the Chaos Knight champion in the challenge went down. Turn 4 for the Wood Elves. And everyone's just moving around, shooting, staying out of the charge arcs. Some of the Chaos Warriors get killed here. Mr. Chaos says, hearing needing 2 more inches brings back bad memories for me. I'm going to assume that they were all wargaming related, especially in the old days where you couldn't pre-measure distances. So not much going on because the enemy are mostly just avoiding now because they're in the lead. They've killed some Dragon Ogres. So as long as they don't lose units, then they're going to be much better off. You can see the dragon has killed the Chaos Knights this time. Turn 5 for me. So the dragon flames the archers that only had 2 left in the unit. And sadly only kills 1. Or how many were there? Was that the unit that had 2? I think so. So I think I just killed one of them. Chaos Warriors are just standing there. There's nothing they can do now. Because there's no sorceress, there's no spell output. Dragon Ogre's just hiding from the enemy dragon a bit, trying to survive. And the issue is, once I failed that charge, there's 0 chance of my dragon fighting the enemy dragon, ever. Because even if I move towards it full speed, it moves away from me full speed and is therefore out of my charge range. Out of my declarable charge range. Turn 5 for the enemy. And the archer does not rally and runs off the table, as you can imagine, because it was the last one in the unit. Dragon gets into position to try and flame the Dragon Ogres, and actually kills one along with the spells from over there, and you can see one of them shed its magnet on the base as well. So my turn 6, I just need to get this Dragon Ogre into position where it might live, to preserve some points, and then see if I can attack anything else. The answer is no, there's nothing to attack because everything's too far away. And the Dragon Ogre just gets out the dragon's charge arc, see if it can survive 1 turn of shooting. Turn 6 for the enemy. Nothing going on over here. They don't even bother shooting at the remaining units I've got on this side because there's nothing that's going to get killed. And the Dragon Ogre gets killed to the wound with all these arrows that fire into it. So, that is the end. So what did we learn from this? We learned that chasing down Wood Elves is a nightmare. They skirmish, they pop out and they shoot you, they hide. So, what can you do about it? Other than having 2 dragons, so you can move in kind of a pincer motion and leave them nowhere to hide, what can you do against it? What have you done as a Chaos Warrior player out there against Wood Elf skirmishers? I think skirmishers are an issue in the game. I think dragons are also an issue in the game. and the way you want a battle to be played and the way you want it to look. First of all, you would have to rewrite the Wood Elf rules, obviously, if you were going to drastically change skirmishes, because that's currently how they survive. But I think to have more... In the lore, in the backstory, the Wood Elves would fight in a way somewhat like this, I suppose, wouldn't they? Where they would kind of do hit and run attacks. But it would be more of a game, ideally, I think. But against dragons that are also way too good. So this game, this is a question I was posing all weekend. If I had nothing else in my army, just a dragon, if I was on my way to the event and just accidentally dropped all the rest of them down a drain and just turned up with the dragon, I think every game has a chance of just being a draw. Because nothing else would die, because there's no one else to get killed, and the dragon probably isn't going to get killed by anything. Probably not. Anything that would kill me, I would just avoid that unit specifically and try and hunt small things. So, with just a dragon, would I lose any games? There would be some difficult matchups, because there'd be some units that have really high static combat res that a dragon can't charge into and beat. So that would be risky. But against an army like this, for example, I don't think one dragon on its own is capable of losing this game very easily. I don't think it's going to die over the course of a game. The game is lost by the other units being killed, really. Okay, I did get a picture of the two dragons face to face, even though they never actually did that during the game, because the Wood Elf one ran away. And also because I failed the charge. It's not all on the Wood Elf dragon. Failing the charge was what really did it. Nice. Two classic dragons. Round 2, Mountain Pass. So that is the first competitive loss, by the way, that this Chaos Warriors army has had. And it is against one of the shenanigan armies, skirmishers. So we'll see if that is something that repeats in the Mountain Pass, because it's against Wood Elves again. So back-to-back games against Wood Elves. This is a different list, though. There are a couple of things in here that look a bit easier to pin down than in the previous list, but also some things that look less easy to pin down. So we'll go through the lists in a moment. But Mountain Pass, of course, means you can't flee off the long edges. And what also made this kind of an oh no moment is that not only is this Wood Elves back-to-back, also, because there were 18 players at the event, there were 9 players on wins and 9 players on losses after the first round. So, with the random pairing, I ended up being paired into someone who just won 20-0 as well. Because at the TSN, in a move that I support, they don't rank it based on your points differential between rounds. It's purely on wins and losses. So people can't manipulate the scores by like seeing that one of the really tough players won by a certain amount and then you intentionally win by a lesser amount so you don't have to play them, for example. So it gets rid of that. So it's just if you win, you play someone that won. If you lose, you play someone that lost, and with the same record. And then the differential points are just tiebreakers at the end. So it does mean occasionally that if you've got odd numbers of pairings, then you'll have one person who lost heavily, potentially, playing against someone that won heavily. In this instance, it's not the craziest thing that could have happened, because there were people that lost heavily as well, who could have been paired into this Wood Elf army that just won 20-0. So, let's find out what's in this list, shall we? Cracking it open as we speak. Also Wood Elves, obviously. You can see that some of them are set up behind me, which I'm fine with, and I set up on the front line knowing that they could deploy behind me, and was unconcerned by this. So, very, very similar build. There is a dragon with a Glade Lord on it, with Swift Shiver Shards, Ogre Blade, so that is the dangerous weapon of Warhammer, Talisman of Protection, Annoyance of Nettlings, Befuddlement of Mischiefs. So, I think what that boils down to is in a challenge, I think you're -1 weapon skill and -1 to hit against this thing. and it's got a 5+ ward save, and an Ogre Blade, so it can hit pretty hard as well. However, I still think the Chaos Dragon with the Mark of Nurgle beats it more often than not, with the triple save, and more wounds. So we'll see if they get to fight each other. You'll see that my opponent has clearly not deployed the Forest Dragon anywhere near where I've put my Chaos Dragon, but I do have a plan. So we'll see what it is in a moment when I go through the rest of the list. So there's a Spellweaver and a Spellsinger, so that's the same as previously. Battle Magic on the Spellweaver, Battle Magic on the Spellsinger, so potentially a couple of Pillars of Fire there. 6 Glade Guard, which is 1 above the minimum. 2 units of 8 Deepwood Scouts, 1 unit of 7 Glade Riders with reserve move. And the Spellcasters are 1 on foot, 1 on the Elven Steed this time. Then there is a unit of 10 War Dancers, so maybe we will get a fight, and a unit of 8 Deepwood Scouts in special. And there's a Tree Man as well. So War Dancers and a Tree Man, so we might actually get some fighting in this game. That would be interesting. So really, against skirmishers, you're trying to pressure them into a position where, at some point, a battle will break out. You want to try and pin them down and make sure they can't escape from all of your charge arcs, which is tricky, because if you get too close to them, they go round the flanks. If you get far enough away that they can't go round the flanks, they just move backwards out of your range. So you need to have kind of a cohesive attack line and make sure you're blocking all the angles, which is tricky, especially when they've got big threats as well, like a dragon, that you're having to be wary of as you approach. So my plan for this game is I'm just going to advance pretty much as fast as I can with these units. The dragon is going to try and set up and kind of cover the front of my units, so give a dragon hesitation when it's deciding whether to charge into any of them, or potentially get my dragon like here and start looking down the flank of the enemy, because if I can force them to retreat that way and my army's coming in this way and the dragon's coming in this way, that'll put them into a corner, which means there's nowhere for them to hide. So we'll see whether I'm able to do that, but because the dragon is wary of the enemy dragon getting into my Chaos Warriors, then perhaps I'll have to use it for babysitting duty again. We'll see. Because this unit, potentially, against a dragon, is a big liability if I leave it unattended. You can see some of the scouts have appeared behind me, but we're unconcerned. The enemy is going first. So, scouts doing some shooting, the enemy dragon looking this way, which is interesting. I could try and charge it with knights, I think, but I'm not going to do that. I think that would be very silly. And everyone else just pops out, does their spells, and then pops back again and shoots from these woods. You also, because they're in the woods, when I get close to them, they can duck behind the woods, and then I have no charge targets. So you can see that represents the unit popping out there, doing the spells, popping back again. And 1 Chaos Warrior dies, and a Dragon Ogre has taken a wound as a result of all the shooting. So, decent start for me. Turn 1. The Chaos Warriors spin round on the spot because I think, you know what, actually, let's just kill the scouts. Get some points, because if I go forward and the enemy successfully gets away, I'm going to score 0. So why not take some points now? Just turn around, shoot them, get out of the dragon's charge range. Why not? So let's do it. Now, potentially, this could be a trap. I don't know whether it's intended by my opponent, but it's also drawing my wizard away from the enemy spellcasting, which means that my dispel range is going to be not sufficient to stop the enemy spells next turn, rather than just ploughing forward. Now, I can't just fly forward 24 inches and land there, because I get flank charged and killed by a dragon. So I have to be a bit more cautious, which is why I felt fine going back, killing the scouts, getting some points, and then being alive. So that's what they do. 2 magic missiles, kills all the scouts. The Dragon Ogres. Okay, so this is a bizarre setup I've gone for here, but you'll see what I'm thinking with it. We've got the Shartak and the Knights out of the Dragon's charge arc. So, the enemy dragon could charge into these Dragon Ogres. My dragon is positioned so that if that fight continues, my dragon can charge in and fight the enemy dragon. If the fight goes very badly, and the Dragon Ogres die or lose and then fall back, the enemy dragon will just plough straight into these dragon ogres, which means my dragon can still charge into the flank of it. So really, it's a dragon trap. Do you charge anything this turn, or do you just reposition and wait for next time? If I can chase it away somewhere, that's fine, so I don't have to deal with it for a turn. But I decided to set this dragon trap to see if the enemy dragon will take it, see how brave it's feeling. Because it might be feeling bold. It might decide, well, I've got an ogre blade, I want to fight a dragon anyway, so I'm just going to charge in, kill your dragon ogres, and then let you charge me, and just take it like a wood elf. I don't have high hopes of that being the case, though. So let's find out. Turn 2 for the Wood Elves. The dragon decides, you know what, I'm just going to turn around and look at your Chaos Knights instead. I don't want to charge anybody. And look, a human hand rolling some dice there. So a couple of knights get killed as a result of the shooting. And there's a pillar of fire up now, which is a bit green, so a bit of a smelly pillar of fire. We'll see if that can do anything. The Dragon Ogres are less concerned about that because they're toughness 4 and they have a ward save against vortex damage anyway, so they're slightly less concerned than many armies are by Pillar of Fire. Turn 2, for me, because not much happened there, just a bit of shooting damage, not much. So, I decide I'm just going to close in with everything, get everyone that I can out of the Dragon's Charge Arc. The Knights can't get out of it, so they're just going to move this way and take it as far away from anything as possible. Now, the dragon might be able to charge something next turn. We'll see if anyone wants to get out of the way of it, because some of them may have to come forwards to get out of its view. We've got all the dragon ogres, we've got the Shartak, just trying to cover as much as possible. So we'll see if the enemy totally scatter and successfully get everything out of my lines of sight, or whether I do have charges available to me. So you can see that I've used Steed of Shadows, which gets my Chaos Warriors way up the table there. And that's it, pretty much just setting up for next turn. Turn 3 for the enemy. Pillar of Fire goes through some more units. And the dragon charges into the knights. Everyone else is going to start moving. The tree man moves in front of the Shartak, or charges him, I can't remember which. Find out in a minute. And then some shooting is taking place from the archers. Some of the others are just diving out of the dragon's charge arc. Yeah, so the tree man did charge the Shartak and do 1 wound. But that's okay, because I want to flank charge the tree man with my dragon ogres. The Chaos Knight champion dies to the enemy dragon, but the knights flee, but they are not caught by 1 inch, so that keeps this dragon from turning round for a turn, which is okay. And so I quite like this, because I've got charge options with my dragon. I've got charge options with my dragon ogres, who can go into the tree man. The Shartak will continue fighting the tree man. I can get my Chaos Warrior bunker with the magic missiles into position to start magic missiling things. So let's see what happens. Turn 3. Well, so you can see, I think I got some pillars of fire first. Picture. I think I dispelled it after it did a bit of damage. So real turn 3 now. So you can see that my knights just rally and move out of the charge arc of the dragon. My Chaos Warriors move into position and start throwing magic missiles at the enemy and kill a load of the Glade Riders with those magic missiles. The combat between my 2 units of Dragon Ogres and the Tree Man goes well. Murder the Tree Man, overrun in both directions. So, you can see that these guys are fleeing, these archers. Because what actually happened, if we go back here, so, I think I charged this unit with my dragon initially. My thinking was that they are probably going to run away. And if they don't, maybe I'll catch them. And there's a sorceress, or a, which one is it? A spell singer. Yeah, it's the spell singer on foot. Oh no, it's the spell weaver. So actually, yeah, that's the more expensive one. So that unit does not want to get charged by a dragon. So I thought they'd probably flee, and then I can redirect my charge into this unit. So I've got the spellcaster fleeing, which means that it's going to miss out on certain spells in the next turn. Anytime you can get an enemy spellcaster either fleeing or in combat, then they're going to be missing out valuable spellcasting opportunities. So that's what I'm thinking there. I'm not actually thinking I'll be allowed to charge that unit. And then the Dragon Ogres, Shartak and this unit 3 splat into the Tree Man, and obviously they kill it. So the dragon does get into those scouts and eats them all. Nuke Man says corn furies, not corn furries. Yes, okay, you were just correcting yourself from above. Corn furries is a concept that I don't necessarily want to see on the table, but I feel like someone must have done it by now. Corn furies, slightly more interesting. So you can see we've actually killed some Wood Elves now, and I'm currently winning, but we'll see how long that lasts. Turn 4 for the enemy. The War Dancers decide they're going to have a piece of the Shartak, and they charge right in there. The enemy dragon decides to turn around and now threaten, rather than trying to do anything too significant, so it's threatening to charge lots of my units now. And the War Dancers kill the Shartak and overrun. But not overrunning beyond my Dragon Ogres, so now I've got choices. My dragon can just about see the War Dancers, and these Dragon Ogres can see them, so I can double charge the War Dancers. This is exciting, we can have more combat. And then this unit of Chaos Warriors is obviously concerned about the dragon being here. Nuke Man says, Corn Furies were an idea for dealing with skirmishing archers since they're fast, hard-hitting and relatively cheap. I'll have to have a look through the army list because there's a lot of things that aren't available to me because the models weren't made at the right time. It has to be 1998 or earlier, but you can definitely get things like harpies from that period. So, my block of Chaos Warriors is going to use Steed of Shadows on my turn and try and get in a position where the dragon can't hit me, but I can use magic missiles on people. That's the plan. I don't want to be charged by a dragon. Dark Horse says can't have Furies and Warriors of Chaos. Well, you've shot down that idea, haven't you? You've shattered Nuke Man's dreams. So my turn. The two Chaos Knights just keep running away. I think in this turn I fail to cast Steed of Shadows, or it's dispelled. So that means I couldn't fly anywhere, so I'm now standing in front of the dragon. And all my magic missiles were dispelled as well. You can see though that I did murder the War Dancers with my dragon and Dragon Ogres. So that's start. And what's going to happen now? So the enemy dragon is probably going to charge into my unit of warriors. So we'll see if they can hold it up for long enough so that I can get something else into it. It goes in, and some shooting actually does wounds to my dragon this time. You can see it's down to 7 from 10 now. Dark Horse says, or Marauder Cav. Were there any Marauder Cavalry available in the 90s or the 80s? Probably. I used to have some Marauder Infantry, some metal ones back in the 90s, but they're like $13.99 each on eBay, so there's no way I can get a unit of them. So there might be something available to me that I could use as the Marauder Cavalry, because they are obviously very good. People tend to run those more than they run Chaos Warriors. You don't really see units of Chaos Warriors anywhere. You mostly see Chaos Knights taken as core, and Hounds, I think, are core. Because if anyone's got a source on which Chaos Horse dudes were available in the 80s and 90s, then let me know. I will get some more Chaos Knights at some point. I want the even earlier ones than the ones I've got. The ones I've got were 98. There were some more that were like 93, I think. So I could do with a unit of those as well. So the champion goes down to the dragon, as you'd expect. And just enough to win the combat. So the Charmed Shield is actually doing nothing for me at the moment, because the kinds of things that I've been fighting are not the kinds of units where I'm fighting enemy champions. It's mostly just been fighting dragons. Because no one else wants to fight Chaos Warriors, it's sad. Everyone else just hides outside of charge arcs, as you'd expect. And what's this? The Chaos Warriors then run away from the dragon and die next turn. Well, you can see that on my turn I positioned my dragon behind the enemy dragon now. So all I had to do was hold on for a turn. I have the choice of sacrificing my sorcerer and throwing away 330 points, or taking the risk and trying to survive one round, because the enemy is not going to be double my unit strength, so I should be able to survive and not fail a leadership test, surely, and then just fall back in good order. However, I think I rolled 11 on the leadership, ran away 3 inches and died, so the whole block is dead. And it now means that this dragon is never going to be able to fight anything ever again, probably, because the enemy dragon can now go and do whatever it wants. And I thought it was just going to fly away and hide now because the Wood Elves have the lead. But it actually turns round and has the ambition that it's going to go and attack some dragon ogres now. So that is a risk because the Wood Elves are in a winning position, but why not? So into the Wood Elf turn 6, dragon charges into the dragon ogre unit of 3 that tried to position themselves so that the Wood Elves couldn't get out of my arcs, pretty much. And they end up fleeing the dragon ogres after the combat, but because it's mountain pass, they can't flee off the edge. So they hit the edge and stop there, and the dragon doesn't overrun very far, does not reach them, and these ones are dead here. My turn 6, I get my dragon in position to do a bit of flaming because I can't charge anyone. And my Chaos Knight runs away and is still fine. So I haven't really lost much in this game. But, well, up to the point at which the giant block of Chaos Warriors died. Most of the other stuff survived, though. So the Dragon Ogre is usually the things to die. It's the first time the Chaos Warrior unit, I think, has died in this army. And all it took was one bad leadership test, because they were in prime position to just pass the unmodified leadership and fall back in good order and get the enemy dragon charged in the rear. If it agreed to stay there, it probably would have said, no, actually, I'm going to restrain and then fly away and hide at this point, which is probably the better choice. But, alas. So that is another 12-8 loss to Wood Elves. And my dragon hasn't really been able to fight things very much yet. I did manage to kill some units in this one, though. Killed some War Dancers. And it was just going very well, the game, actually, up until the one moment that the Chaos Warrior block with the Sorcerer failed to cast Steed of Shadows that one time, which left them in charge arc of the dragon. And that's what did it. All it takes is a dragon getting in there once. Just say no to dragons. Not even once. Even once to a dragon can kill you. Whiskey says, I used the Grenadier mounted barbarians. They're lovely cobblestone sculpts, but obviously not Citadel. Yes, if anyone knows of any Citadel mounted barbarian type models from pre-1998, then let me know. Levitius says you definitely need a BSB in that unit. I was thinking a BSB, it would boost the combat res by 1, but I don't think there's a way of boosting it by more, so if the dragon gets the maximum, then it's going to still win combat against that block. And I don't think there's another way to boost the combat res beyond 6. And 7 is what you need to beat a dragon, because then you would tie with it if it scores the maximum overkill, and then you've got a musician. So what else can you do? Is it worth having a character in there with the acid? Just a little cheap character with the acid, so that then you get into a challenge with it, accept the challenge, take a load of damage, and then splash the acid back on the enemy dragon and try and do a couple of wounds, and try and reduce the combat resolution difference, or swing it into your favour. Something like that, is that worth trying, do we think? So, this army still has a 100% win rate against armies that are not Wood Elves. Round 3. Open battle against the Skaven, and immediately, as soon as I see this army, I think the Skaven are not going to have a good time here. Because if you can't hide, the Chaos Dragon, Dragon Ogres, they're going to get in there, they're going to eat a lot of rats, and there is no hiding because these rats fill the entire table. Giant rats everywhere. So, let's pull up this Skaven list now. Yes, not Wood Elves. I've already played all the Wood Elves, so I won't be playing Wood Elves at the event again. There's still 3 Bretonnians out there, and another 2 or 3 Chaos Warriors I could meet. So that would be something new for my Chaos that I haven't had yet. There is also... what else have we got? We've got Empire... a couple of Empire, Tomb Kings, Vampire Counts with a heavy Scream list, which I saw being played on the table next to me, We've got the nomadic warg are in there as well. And some dwarves. So it's not as diverse a set of armies as it was at the previous event, I think. We've got 2 Skaven actually at this one. So a bit more consolidated, mostly Bretonnians and Chaos Warriors on here. There's a lot of those. So the Skaven list. Where did I put that? There we go. Cracking open the Skaven. So let's see what they've got. They've got giant rats. There are, in fact, 4 units of 29 giant rats and a packmaster with a whip. So 30 models in the unit, 4 of them. Look at all that space they fill up. Just giant rats as far as the eye can see. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a lot of space they fill up. Potentially a lot of attacks coming in because they are in kind of a line, and they fight in extra ranks as well, I think. So lots of attacks coming back if you don't put loads into them. So they're obviously not the scary part of the list though. What is scary then? Let's have a look. Well, we've got the Jezzails, 8 of those, so they're long range. If you get out of their shooting arc though, they can't hit you because they can't move and fire, which just, it seems a bit unfair that, but they are good if they can shoot you. Then there is a warp lightning cannon, so potentially a very scary war machine, firing in a line, murdering things. Then these pictures aren't the best. I've got better pictures later on though. These are plague monks. We have got, let's see how many are there. 39 of them, with the plague deacon and a grand banner of superiority, which one was that again? Is that the D3 combat res? And a musician. So the plague monks are one of my favourite Skaven units actually. Not necessarily these ones. I really like the old metal plague monks. They were some of my favourite models, and back in the late 90s I seriously considered starting Skaven at one point actually because of the metal plague monks. I thought they were so cool. And the storm vermin are really cool looking as well. I'm not as keen on the plastic Skaven, I prefer the metal ones. There are some metal ones in this army, but the plastic plague monks aren't bad, but I do really like the metal ones, probably for nostalgia reasons. Then, what have they got in their unit? It's a very expensive unit. It has, I already told you about the banner. It's 341 points anyway. So they've also got some heroes in there as well, in a bit of a death start. There's also these plague censer bearers, 10 of those. So they are frenzied and just pretty nasty with essentially flails. And there's also a hero with them. Plague Priest, there we go. So he's hanging out in the unit, one of those. Plague Priest, just slightly better than they are. In ambush, that's right, there's a Skaven ambushing unit of clan rats with a warp grinder weapon team attached to it. And if we go back to this unit, in there we've got a Grey Seer, who is, let's see, level 4 with battle magic and lore familiar. There is a Skaven chieftain in there somewhere with halberd, heavy armor, battle standard bearer. So that's the BSB there. Also has the banner of verminous scurrying. Is that the one that's D3 combat res? But it might be that one. And then there's a Skaven warlord with the fell blade. So I think that's him there with the cleaver. The fell blade is a very powerful weapon. It's not good against chaos dragons that give you strike last, because the dragon can just eat you before you get to use it. The thing with the fell blade is though, over the course of the game, there's a good chance that it kills its holder without getting into combat. You can just kill yourself without doing anything. It's not like Burlock Daminson, for example, who occasionally uppercuts himself with his own hammer when he's fighting. The fell blade just wounds you regardless of what you do. Magpie says, I'm 8 minutes behind, but there was a query about 80s models for Marauder Horsemen. Have you considered 80s Chaos Centaurs? Massive range, great sculpts would look great alongside the Dragon Ogres. That is a potentially good idea, actually. I'll have to make a note of that. That's possibly a good idea. I'll have to see what's available out there. But that could be something that works. They would definitely fit the theme. And yeah, I'll have to have a browse of some old catalogues online later. See what's out there. That could be interesting. I'll make a note of that one. Then, what else have we got in here? There's a Warplock Engineer with a Warplock Pistol. He's a level 2 wizard with battle magic and the Ruby Ring of Ruin. So, the Warplock Engineer is hanging out over here somewhere. So there's a lot of rats. We've got a nice over-the-shoulder shot towards the enemy there of the dragon. And I get the first turn. So let's have a look at the wide shot again and talk about my plan before we dive into the turns. So, my plan is not very complicated. The dragon does not want to fight this unit of plague monks on its own. Because even though I would destroy whoever accepts the challenge or issues the challenge, they've got good combat res. So I don't know if I could just beat the unit in one go. So I need to multi-charge something in there. Everything else can just go straight forward and kill giant rats. That's the plan. Move forward, kill things, and then move forward and do magic missiles. Try and bring the plague monks into range so I can hit them with more than one unit at a time. Because just the dragon isn't going to do it. So the dragon is more likely, rather than just fighting this unit, is more likely going to be trying to charge something else, like the war machine, and then get into the Jezzails, and then turn round and look at the plague monks and try and get multi-charging on them. But that is a concern for the dragon. And if I have to go within their charge range, then that's not ideal either, because I don't want them charging my Chaos Warriors, because that chieftain with a Fellblade is very scary, and they could potentially just kill my Sorcerer, which wouldn't be fun. Well, it would be fun for the Skaven. So, march forward and kill everything, and be wary of the Plague Monks is my plan here. This is a proper army though, this Skaven army, isn't it? This is what you kind of want in a game of Warhammer. I would say my army kind of fits this criteria as well, because it's going to walk forward into the middle with some solid, just bulky units that are going to be fighting. You're looking for things to support on the flanks, like a Shartak and Chaos Knights. That's how you want a battle to be fought. You want it to come down to who can successfully put the right units in front to absorb charges, who can put the right units behind, who can block the correct enemy units so that they can't send all their forces into the same place, rather than it just being a dragon charges you and kills everything because it's faster than you and has 3 saves. So I think we need some tweaks to probably the scenario scoring of the old world, but also to dragons. It's sad because dragons should be this powerful, because it's cool and they're dragons, but it is to the detriment of the game. So, let's go. Turn 1 for me. Just moving right up into the enemy face. I've allowed the giant rats to charge the unit of 2 dragon ogres if they want. And then, if they happen to win, then I will furiously countercharge with the Shartak and these guys. But I don't know if they have a great chance of beating 2 dragon ogres. Optimus D says 90s Chaos Army have access to war machines. Well, it's funny you should ask, because the one thing I can think of that's out there, because the Hell Cannon is too recent, but, speaking of the word but, there is actually a butt cannon out there. I need to look into the butt cannon, because it's kind of like a Hell Cannon. Was it Marauder Miniatures, the butt cannon, or was it made by somebody else? I need to look into that, because that does remind me about it, actually. Because if that qualifies as potentially a Citadel miniature, the butt cannon, was it featured in a White Dwarf magazine? Anyone old school, let me know on that one. It's like a big horrible demon with a cannon that is also its butt. So that does become an option as a Hell Cannon. The other option would be to convert something old into a Hell Cannon. So if anyone can think of an old miniature that's available 90s or previously, 98 or before, so anything that's just disgusting looking that can be turned into a giant spawn or a Hell Cannon would be good things to look for. Ways to expand the army into units that weren't available at the time necessarily. So, advanced up, magic missiled a few plague monks to death, and that's it. And now, Skaven counter-offensive. Here we go. The Warplock Engineer is just teleporting himself behind my lines just to try and be annoying. He can't do much else yet. He does kill 1 warrior with his pistol, which is cool for him. The Warp Lightning Cannon misfires and then explodes. First time it fires, it's dead. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. The Dragon Ogres, you'll notice they've taken wounds and they're closer to the enemy now. And you'll also notice that the Censer Bearers, the Plague Censer Bearers, are no longer there. That's because it turned out, purely by accident, I'd moved into their charge range and they're frenzied. So they had to charge me. They made the charge, but because of the weird skirmish rules in Warhammer the Old World, 2 of them, because they were slightly further away, couldn't make it to their final position, so they just died. So 2 of them died immediately, because of the bizarre skirmish rules. And then they put their attacks in, wounded the Dragon Ogre, I hit back, killed them, and I think I ran down like the surviving 2. Well, not a good time for the Skaven. The Warp Lightning Cannon blowing itself up, the Plague Censer Bearers charging into the Dragon Ogres against their will, and then being killed. So the Skaven turn has actually yielded way more Skaven casualties than Chaos Warrior casualties. Not great for them. You can see that the enemy rats have closed in so that my knights won't be able to get an initiative bonus when I charge them, which I can live with. I'm still going to go in there. Into my turn, what am I going to do? So both units of Dragon Ogres are going to charge into these rats, I think. My dragon, that would have charged the Warp Lightning Cannon, now doesn't have a particularly juicy target, so I'm probably not going to charge yet. I'm just going to keep magic missiling the Plague Monks until they move, and then charge them, and double charge them at the same time. To my turn. Dragon Ogres. The unit of 3 failed its charge. I magic missile off a few Plague Monks. The Chaos Knights murder the 30 giant rats. I kill a few of them. They don't kill any of mine. And I overrun and totally murder them. So you can see I got up to a combat res of 9. Which means that not only did the knights kill rats, but also the horses killed rats. And the 2 Dragon Ogres that got into the other rats... Okay. You'll notice that 2 units of rats are gone. This is very unfortunate for the Skaven. The first unit of giant rats fled from the 2 units of Dragon Ogres. It fled behind the unit. This unit here then continued the charge into the other unit that was now blocking the path to the fleeing unit. The unit of 3 failed their charge because of the extra distance that had been created by the unit fleeing. The unit of 2, however, killed so many of them and didn't take anything in return that unit broke and fled off the table. I then pursued and crashed into the unit that was already fleeing. So they both died. Well, I don't know what to say to that, other than wow, wow, wow. Giant rats, dead, strewn all over the place, and running away. Sad times for the Skaven. And I've now put my dragon outside the charge arc of the Plague Monks, same with the Shartak. But these Dragon Ogres that failed their charge into the giant rats are just within charge range of the Skaven now. So potentially, if they get in there, that could be a way to keep them safe from my dragon for a turn. So let's find out whether they do. Turn 2. Oaken Shield cast onto the Plague Monks. They're getting ready for a fight. But they don't make the charge. So, we had to get the tape measure out, work out exactly how much they would have had to wheel to just make contact with my unit. And they were actually like 3mm away from touching the Dragon Ogres. So, very sad times for them. They didn't quite make the charge, so they stop here. And very sad. They also, with some shooting from somebody, let's see. I think and maybe some more Chaos Warriors possibly got killed by the Warp Block Engineer that's running around at the back. But the reason this guy's off the tray is because it was easier to get the tape measure on there when he's not there. So I was running the tape measure through here to the Skaven units to see exactly how far it was, and they were just short on the charge. If they'd got 1 more inch, they would have been in. Which would have been not bad for them, because they would have only been touching one Dragon Ogre, so not many attacks coming back at them. They would have been in position to be charged by the Chaos Warriors, who could be buffed up by the time they get into the fight, but I'd be concerned about the characters in there. So it would have been nice for the Skaven, though, if they'd got in. But just out. Then, yes, you can see. So they attempted that charge. Block Engineer killed some by turn 3. So, Dragon Ogres, Chaos Warriors, both splat into the Plague Monks. Everyone tries to charge in. But not everyone can make it. These two don't make it in, the Shartak and the Dragon Ogres, because they were blocked off by my dragon. I couldn't quite fit in there once everyone else had got in. My dragon has to fly away after the charge phase, you see. Whiskey says, back to Mountain Marauders. There isn't much of a choice pre-6th edition. Best citadel I can suggest is C13 Heroic Adventurers and C33 Mounted Adventurers. Noted. So, we've got the double charge here. We've got a challenge between the Plague Monk champion and the Chaos Warrior champion. This is the kind of fight where the Charmed Shield is actually going to be very useful. I've got Demonic Vessel cast on my unit. Means I get +1 to strengthen attacks. By the way, my spell choices in each game are pretty simple. I'm leaving out Vortex of Chaos in every single game because I don't like it. I think it's not very good compared to the other spells. And then I'm either leaving out, depending if I don't think I'm going to fight, I leave out the Assailment. If I don't think I need to buff, for example, strengthen attacks, because I don't think I'm going to need that, depending on what I'm facing, then I might leave out Demonic Vessel. There's the other buff to potentially leave out. Seed of Shadows always gets in, the Summoning always gets in, because I want Magic Missiles and the ability to fly. The other ones mix and match. The Hex as well that affects leadership and initiative isn't always useful depending what you're facing and depending how I think the game's going to go, so I don't always select that one either. So you can see that my Sorcerer has actually got an extra attack and an extra weapon skill at the moment from the Eye of the Gods. And with all the fighting going on, oh, you can see that my dragon has got in position to charge the Jezzails next turn as well. He's just going hunting for things now, because I think all the Dragon Ogres and the Warriors can handle this mess. Oh yeah, the Skaven ambushes have come in now, by the way. I just took a picture of them late because we forgot about them. Whiskey says there's a resculpt of the Ass Cannon available from Oldhammer Miniatures. I have seen it, actually. I don't know if it's exactly the same, or if it's a slight alteration on the original. But I am going to look into that as well. And my Sorcerer gets killed by the Plague Monks and the various characters that were swinging at him. So the Sorcerer is dead. I think it was the Fellblade that took him out, because it doesn't allow saves. So he's just dead. So it's a very good weapon. But I do win the combat, because no one else really died, and I killed quite a few rats. So I got 12, the enemy got 9. So they just back up a little bit, and the Dragon Ogres can't actually continue into them because the Shartak's blocking, but the Chaos Warriors do, and now I'm going to charge them with multiple things. So, my turn. The dragon kills the Jezzails quite easily, and is hanging out on the hill. And the Plague Monks are no more. They get sandwiched, a big rat sandwich between all the Dragon Ogres and the Warriors. They get chomped, and they're all dead. The enemy scored 1 in the combat. I scored, looks like 10. So, they get run down, they are toast. So that is pretty much the end of the game. Everything's dead apart from the Warblock Engineer, who just keeps teleporting himself away. Can't catch him, but I do get everything else. So it's a big win for the Chaos Warriors. Not maximum win, because the Sorcerer getting chopped down by the Fellblade is 330 points. So that's a decent chunk for the Skaven there. I think he's the only thing that died, though. Into the next round. Command and Control. And it's the Dark Elves. It's elves again, but they are not quite as skirmishy as the Wood Elves were. There are some things in there that are possibly a bit easier to pin down. So there are still some skirmishing cavalry units. They're going to be tricky. But let me crack open the list here. So, by the way, my dragon is on the black base there, but he couldn't sit there because his wing was touching the edge of the table, so he wouldn't rest properly. So I've got my spare dragon base for such occasions where he doesn't physically fit in there, because he is huge on that base. Very pokey outy. So, we've got... Who's on a chariot? Is it just... I think it's just a regular chariot. I don't think it necessarily has anyone on it, but let's check. Oh yeah, it does. It's a Dark Elf Master on a chariot. There we go. It's also the... Hold on, let me see. Yeah, that is the only chariot. So it's the BSB on the chariot. There it is. And that BSB has a Sea Dragon Cloak and a Talisman of Protection. We've got some Cold Ones. We have got 6 Cold One Knights with full plate armor, a Dread Knight, and the Banner of Har Geneth. Now, is that the one that gives them extra AP? Potentially. So they're quite scary. These are some nice classic miniatures, by the way. Then, if we ignore the fact some of these are clearly goblins, I'll overlook that. I'll allow it. We've got some Dark Riders. So they've got Fire and Flee available to them as an option. And you can see above them, we've got a Supreme Sorceress on a Dark Pegasus with 2 Focus Familiar to add some extra range to spells. Battle magic, so potentially long-range Pillar of Fire coming my way, which could be quite tasty for the Dark Elves. We've got a dragon. Now this one is actually plastic, and I was thinking, looking at it, I don't remember there being like a plastic dragon in this pose, because it's got that very old school look about it before they kind of redesigned dragons later. That classic dragon like S shape, but this one is actually plastic. It looks a lot like the... Which one is it most like? It's either like the old metal Dark Elf one, or it's like the Dogs of War dragon as well. Similar kind of proportions to that with the head size and the horns and everything. But it is in plastic. You can see the divide on the parts there, actually, as you can see. So it's classic shape, classic style of a dragon, and I don't know if I knew it existed. We've got a Hydra. A very tiny old school Hydra, not like the new fancy pants one. And hold on, I didn't tell you about the guy on the dragon yet. So we've got Dark Elf Dreadlord. It's sub 500 points. You'd expect it to be not quite as good as a Chaos Dragon. Sea Dragon Cloak, Pendant of Kaleth, full plate armor, great weapon, shield, repeater handbow. So it's a bit of a budget character compared to the Chaos Dragon, but still very powerful. We have got some repeater crossbows. Let's see, how many points are they? 270 points for 20 repeater crossbows with they do have a champion and full command in there. Also got 5 harpies, old school classic harpies at the back there. And let's go back to the wide shot and talk about how I'm going to approach this one. So the command and control, the way it's played at the square-based events at the TSN Arena, the central piece of terrain is not treated as woods. Whatever's there just turns into a very tall, impassable bit of terrain. So we don't have any woods on this table. So, I am not too confident in necessarily pinning down the cavalry. Cold ones maybe I'll get to fight them. Dark Riders, definitely not going to pin them down. Hydra, should be able to pin that down and fight that. Chariot, maybe. Crossbows, probably. So we might actually get some fighting in this game. We'll see if a game of Warhammer breaks out at some point, or whether I'm able to be... my opponent is able to avoid my scariest units. So, we've got down this line here, because obviously you can't go into this terrain. So we've got my Chaos Warriors going straight towards the cavalry, which I'd be okay with, because it means I'm fighting and I've got my dragon looking down the flank, and I've got my Shartak into this flank as well. I put these 2 Dragon Ogres down first, because I wanted my opponent to think maybe I was going to deploy everything on this side, so something would go down over here. So the repeater crossbows, I just don't want to go near them, because I don't want to advance that far ideally, because I want to get the bonus points or deny the enemy bonus points for holding this piece of terrain at the end, which is 200, which is significant. So I'm just going to avoid the shooting, make it come towards me a bit. So I put everything on this side. Knights out on the flank, dragon just protecting the flank. I did think for a moment of just sending the dragon after the crossbows, but that means I'm not protecting any of my units from the enemy dragon, and I have been traumatized now by the Wood Elf dragon going into these warriors in game 2. So, let's go. Just going to advance on the enemy and try and shut down the angles, stop them getting away a bit if we can. The enemy go first. You can see there's a pillar of fire right on me with that, what's the item called again? Focus Familiar, so it gets extra range on it. And then there's another vortex there that's a random moving one that's just difficult terrain. So, the enemy, a bit of aggression. I do have the option to charge some things, attempt to charge into the dragon. And we'll see if I go for it. The shooting doesn't really do anything in this turn because there isn't much of it. The crossbows actually decided they were going to march towards me because they're not going to be able to kill much from their vantage point. So, there's a dragon right in my face. This is kind of what I want though. It's out of charge range of my dragon, so I could charge it with dragon ogres, for example. Let's see what I do though. So here's my master plan for dealing with the dragon. First of all, the pillar of fire goes through and does a bit of damage to the Shartak, kills one dragon ogre. We can live with that. So, I get my warriors out of there. They don't want to fight a dragon, so they're just hanging out next to the impassable woods with Steed of Shadows. Just fly over there, away from the enemy. Don't want to get charged by a dragon. I've put 3 dragon ogres right in front of the enemy dragon, and I've put Gathering Darkness on it to give it minus to leadership and initiative from a spell. Got my Shartak out of its charge arc. So, the dragon, if it charges the dragon ogres, could kill them, potentially, but with that -2 to leadership, suddenly, maybe it'll be scary now. Who knows? But that's not really the point of it, because I've put my dragon up here, and anything that charges those dragon ogres, I am then going to charge with my dragon. So you're free to charge them, but even if you overrun through them, you're probably not getting out of my charge arc. So, and even if you do, you're going straight into the Chaos Knights. Not that a dragon would be scared of them, but I don't think it can really get far enough from there. Unless it rolls really high on the overrun. If it totally wipes them out and overruns like 18 inches, then maybe you just get out of my charge arc. But what's most likely to happen is that if the dragon ogres die, it'll be because they take so many wounds and then flee, and they're going to flee on average 7 inches and then get caught, which puts the dragon there, which is ripe for the plucking. So I could charge with my dragon, I can charge with the Chaos Knights at the same time. Potentially even the Shartak, if it's not blocked off. So, would it even be able to flee properly in those circumstances? I don't know. Turn 2 for the Dark Elves. So the Hydra goes into the 2 Dragon Ogres. I presented it with also the Warriors as an option. It can charge into either one, but the Hydra isn't that reliable with its hitting. So it didn't want to face the Chaos Warriors and just lose combat to static res. So going for the Dragon Ogres was seen as a safer bet. The dragon does go into the Dragon Ogres. Okay, this is interesting. I was expecting that this obvious trap would just be avoided and that the dragon would like fly over here and then set something up for next time. However, I can understand why it didn't, because the way my dragon's positioned, you can't really do anything in this area without me charging you. So these knights would have had to charge like the Shartak and then get recharged by things. So I can understand why the dragon doesn't just abandon this whole area, because there are things that can't get away, especially yet. So, dragon into the Dragon Ogres. Knights just sit in front of the Shartak, which is going to prevent him from like joining in on a charge there. Harpies just flap over my head and hang out. Crossbows take aim, kill a Chaos Warrior or 2, maybe just 1. And the Dragon Ogres do get killed. They flee a very short distance, the dragon catches them, and it has taken wounds though. The Dragon Ogres do actually do like 2 or 3 wounds to the enemy dragon first, which is good. Now it's weaker, and now I can go for stage 2 of the master plan, which is charge the enemy dragon with my dragon and the Chaos Knights. Unfortunately, the Shartak cannot join in because the cold ones are too close to it. I also actually have the option of charging the cold ones with my Chaos Dragon, because they are just within the declarable charge range. However, I don't think killing the knights is going to be enough in the long term in this game. Let's see how many points they are. Cold One Knights, 256 points. So, if some of my units get killed, for example Dragon Ogres, then it's not going to be a particularly decisive score. What I really want is to just eat this dragon. And then if it flees out of my charge range, then I can try and redirect the charge then into the Cold One Knights. So that's my backup plan. So you can see that the dragon just did loads of wounds, and I just did 3 back, I think. Or maybe 2, and then maybe there was still close order. But I don't think so, because look at all that. So I think I just got 3 wounds through. Okay. The Hydra does some wounds to the Dragon Ogres, but not much, and it's a draw. So because it's a draw, because of this terrain, I can't really charge in there, because I can't even go forwards because of the position of this piece of terrain here. Because I could charge in and then not line up, which I think would be a disordered charge, but I just can't physically go forwards and touch it because of the way the terrain is. It's very weird. I don't think, anyway. So could I, for example, let's see, I don't even know if I could swing that way because of this shape of the terrain here. Because my movement tray is already on it, but obviously that's not part of the unit. And roll the initiative says drill. There is no option for drilled on Chaos Warriors. You can take it on Chosen, I think, but not Chaos Warriors, which is probably one of the reasons no one takes them. They're just not very good, weirdly, normal Chaos Warriors. They only have a 4+ save with shields. You can't give them full plate. You can't give them drilled. And they're just not that good, sadly. However, they are very cool models. If I end up with something else in my collection that I want to use as core, they can always be run as Chosen, though, who are much more enticing, I think, because Chosen have full plate, which for a start elevates them, and you can just take more cool stuff on them. And a unit of Chosen flying 24 inches in turn 1 and landing right in front of you is actually very scary. So, into my turn 2. So what's going to happen here? I'm going to charge. So the dragon is fleeing from my dragon. And I've put Gathering Darkness from my sorcerer onto the Hydra, just to give me a bit of an edge there. The enemy dragon flees from my charge, which is a risk, and it actually took my opponent a good few minutes to decide whether to do this or not. Because if you flee, and you don't roll very well, you just get caught and die immediately. If you stand there and get charged, the knights are bringing 2 combat resolution, and the dragon, which is slightly better than your dragon. So on average, you are going to lose, but you're also not going to be killed in 1 round. So staying there guarantees almost that you'll survive a round, probably. Because you're not going to be double unit strengthed. So you're probably going to pass your leadership and fall back in good order after 1 round. Probably. There is a slight chance you could just get absolutely killed by the Chaos Dragon in a challenge. It's possible. And anyway, my opponent decides to flee. So let's see how far it goes. Well, would you look at that? It doesn't actually flee that far. I think it was about 8 inches. So it's not a huge amount. But my dragon fails to catch it by 2 inches. So if I'd rolled 2 inches higher on the dice, the Dark Elf dragon would have been dead instantly. Wow, wow, wow. So there was a game earlier where my dragon was 1 inch away from rear charging an enemy dragon, which would have been game changing. And right here, 2 inches away from reaching the Dark Elf dragon, which would have just instantly killed it. And even though we would have continued playing the game, once 1 dragon is dead, you might as well shake hands at that point, because that is too significant a loss to come back from, scoring-wise. It's just too much of an important tool in the way these armies function as well. It needs to be out there killing stuff, ideally. So it is fleeing, though. So if it fails to rally, for instance, it could be in a tricky situation next. Oh, you can see that if we go back here, in combat, I charged in the Shartak into the cold ones, and you can see he's fleeing from them, but they don't bother chasing him. Because of the weird angles involved with this impassable piece of terrain here for command and control, they decided to restrain instead, because what would have happened was they would have hit this piece of terrain and then kind of slowly worked their way around it in a weird way, and it would have actually been quite a long distance to catch him awkwardly. So they decided they're not going to bother with that, because it's their turn next. Because the Shartak just horribly failed on his attacks. He just killed one, I think, and then failed his leadership and ran away, rolling like a 12 on the leadership. So, bad times for being a Shartak. And they think, actually, because it's the Dark Elf's turn next, the Shartak is basically dead. Because the Harpies can just charge him. He has to flee again, and they fly, so they'll probably catch him. So, sad times ahead. Sorcerer does fire off some magic missiles and does some good damage to those crossbows on the hill, though, so that's good. And my Dragon Ogres beat the Hydra in combat. One of them's died, though, and they push it back. So, into the enemy turn, the Harpies do charge the Shartak and kills it, so he's had a very disappointing performance in this game. You'd expect him to do better against the Cold Ones, but he just only did 1 damage, I think, to the champion in the challenge. The enemy Dragon does successfully rally. The Dark Riders are hanging out with the Cold Ones, hiding behind the terrain now. Don't want to get hit by my dragon. The enemy dragon is obviously, it's wounded already from the fight with the Dragon Ogres earlier. And at this point it's thinking, we're kind of in the lead, so why don't I just fly away? Why would I want to fight this Chaos Dragon? It's probably not going to go well, so let's run away at full speed out of its charge range. Crossbows kill a few more Chaos Warriors, not too significant. And 1 Chaos Knight goes down to Archer Fire as well. Hooper says, Chosen are better, but are so expensive. At least Warriors are cheap enough and okay enough to make a decent bulky unit. Plus can fit more in because they're cheaper. I think Chosen, there's certain things they do that the normal Warriors don't, that make them not just better statistically, but also just in gameplay terms, when you've got them on the table, being able to take things like Drilled. And there's a huge difference actually between a 4+ and a 3+ save, I find. I think 4+ is the highest save that's considered bad. So 2+, 3+, good save. 4, 5 and 6 I think are not good saves. Because a lot of things that are going to hit you are going to have AP, and it makes you quite unlikely to make those saves. So I think going to a 3 is quite a big difference, because if you're fighting crummy units, they might get some wounds through, but on average you save them, whereas with a 4+, it's just a coin toss whether you make any of those saves. Okay, so we came within 2 inches of probably winning by killing this dragon. Now it's looking tricky. So what can we kill? It's not going to be the Hydra yet, because 1 Dragon Ogre gets killed by it and does 1 wound. So it has 1 wound left, so I could definitely kill it next turn. And that's more expensive than the Dragon Ogre, so that would be a good kill to get the Hydra. Turns around to face me. My issue is, I can't afford to charge it, because I would then be exposing myself to these Cold Ones, and I don't want them to charge in and just stab the wizard with a lance. That sounds terrible, so what I'm going to do is kind of stay back and just try and magic missile the Hydra to death. Turn 3 for me. So I attempt it, and the magic missiles do nothing. Neither one of them do anything. My dragon gets in a position behind the enemy dragon, just to try and scare it away so it can't threaten my very expensive wizard bunker. And the Chaos Knights just get out of charge arcs and prepare to just run around and not die, hopefully. And that's it. So my turns are very quick now, because there's not much I can do. My units aren't in a position to charge things. We've got this big impassable piece of terrain. All the initiative says, is there a way to make a chosen unit core? I don't think so. If you could, that would be great, because that would be a cool core unit. And you don't mind if they're a bit expensive, because you have to spend those points on something anyway, because it's core. So I would definitely try out a unit of core chosen. You could do that. I don't think you can, though. I don't think any of the special army lists allow you to do that. Not that I've seen, anyway. But that would be cool. Because if you're going to pay a tax, then you might as well pay for something that's good. Now, I don't think the Chaos Warriors are horrendously bad. I think against some armies, this unit with a wizard in it is amazingly good. It's a wizard bunker that's very difficult to shift. It can fly around if you get the spell off, do magic missiles, and you don't really want to fight them if you're not a strong unit, because I've got buffs that I can put on this unit as well. However, against like a dragon, and skirmishing units, it's not great. If they can run away out of range of out of sight of my magic missiles, a 12-inch fly move and a magic missile can't necessarily catch them if they're very fast. And they can split up, they can run to different corners behind buildings, and dragons and anything that's really strong, this unit can't really stand up to it. So, depending on the opponents, this unit's either great or horrifically bad. Turn 4. So, the Hydra is probably going to try and eat some of my Chaos Warriors. And you can see the evil Sorceress is going to be killing my Chaos Knights. We're down to just one champion now. And the enemy dragon just shuffles out of my dragon's charge arc and is quite happy to play the my dragon doesn't get to do anything as long as yours doesn't either game, which is a good game to play if your dragon is cheaper, which this one is, and also you're probably up on kills, and I don't really have the tools to chase any of these enemy units down because they're too fast. And the ones that I am able to chase down, when I've had dilemmas where I can like sit in front of the enemy units and then watch them scatter, the ones that can't scatter can then have arcane urgency used on them, so they can just move out of range as well. And I don't have the infernal puppet, so arcane urgency is very likely to go off still. So I can see why people use the infernal puppet, definitely, because arcane urgency allows units that wouldn't normally be able to scatter out of charge range just to do so very easily. So my turn 4, I decide I'm just going to fly the Chaos Warriors right in front of the crossbows to get them away from this dragon. And that's what I do. So this crossbows have got one turn to shoot me before they get charged. My dragon parks itself in front of the cold ones. So this is the situation I'm talking about here. I've blocked them off. They can't go anywhere. They can't wheel past me because they're coming too close. All they can do is go backwards. But there is a wizard with arcane urgency, so they can turn round on the spot. And we were talking about all the different options during the game for this unit, and when I was going to plant here what they could potentially do to get away. And because they definitely can try, so it came down to they could turn away from me and then use arcane urgency to get another move and try and move away. They can't move out my charge range or out of my charge arc because of the positions of other things we determine, but they are able to move away from me and make it a difficult charge if they can get the spell off, which they may be able to because my wizard is now over here chasing down these crossbows, which I kind of have to because I need to score some points. But if I'd left my wizard over here, I could potentially shut that spell down and keep them there. But I think these crossbows are as expensive as the Cold One Knights anyway, so I'm just as well off trying to kill these guys. Turn 5 for the enemy. So Chariot and Harpies are just hanging out here, and they end up shooting down my final Chaos Knight with the Chariot and the Dark Riders. Crossbows don't do enough to my Chaos Warriors, so they are going to get charged next turn. And the Cold Ones do get Arcane Urgency successfully cast on them, so they move away as far as they can. Still within the Dragon's charge range, though, so I can still declare a charge. Oh, but also, there's a Pillar of Fire there as well. So the Pillar of Fire was cast behind them, which means that if I charge them, I'll be in difficult terrain, which means that I use the lowest dice. So that makes it actually suddenly a very difficult charge for the dragon. And I fail to get rid of it before the charge phase as well with my Fated Dispel. So as a result of that, the dragon ends up failing its charge by, I think that was about an inch as well. It wasn't much. As you can see, the dragon's got a 10-inch move, so it's not a huge distance there. So it was only an inch or two in it, I think. So just fails the charge into the rear of the Cold Ones, which would have picked me up some good points there. The Chaos Warriors do get into the crossbows. I get all my buffs off on my unit. I debuff the enemy's leadership and initiative. I give myself extra movement, toughness, initiative, attacks and strength and AP, but I still don't wipe out the unit. But I do go after them, and they don't full on flee, they just give ground, I think. So one more turn to fight them. Turn 6 for the Dark Elves. The Cold Ones just move away as far as they can from the dragon. The Harpies are just hanging out. The Chariot's running away a bit. Everyone else is just getting out of sight of the dragon, basically. So the dragon hasn't fought anyone yet, and it doesn't look like it's going to, because the enemy can run away successfully and just keep running round and round this big impassable piece of terrain. And there's not a lot I can do about it. We've got a Hydra right here as well, but it's not in a position where I can land next to it and still use a flame template on it, which would be dicey anyway, because it's a 4+ to even hit it, and then the breath weapon is only like strength 4, so probably wouldn't wound it anyway. Chaos Warriors kill more of the crossbows, but still haven't killed them, so one more turn to try and do it. In my turn, you can see my dragon gets into position just to make sure the enemy don't score any victory points for holding the centre, and then drop a flame template and doesn't really do anything to the Dark Riders. And I do end up killing this unit of archers, crossbows in this turn. They run off the table, so my Chaos Warriors do get something killed in the end. And no one scores the middle. So I do kill a unit over there. I leave the Hydra on 1 wound because the magic missiles failed to finish it off. And that's quite sad. The dragon got a bit unlucky not to reach anything. Could have killed this dragon by getting 2 inches more. Could have reached the rear of the Cold Ones with 1 inch or 2 more on the charge there as well. But, of course, it was the Pillar of Fire being planted there, which is a sneaky manoeuvre. If you're putting difficult terrain in front of one of your own units to make the charge into them more difficult, that's something to think about for the future. I haven't really thought about doing that ever, because people think of Pillar of Fire for its damage-dealing properties rather than the fact that it's also difficult terrain. I don't know whether it's specified as difficult, but is it dangerous terrain, the Pillar of Fire, which then is automatically difficult as well? Or is it just difficult? So, this is a very tiny loss, because I haven't lost much really at all. I've not lost any of my expensive units. I've only lost my cavalry and some dragon ogres, and the enemy has lost the crossbows, and was there another thing? I'm not sure if there was another unit that was lost. Possibly. Not sure. Okay, so it's a very small loss anyway. And then I've got some pictures of the armies at lunchtime on the next round. So, the losses so far have been all to elves that are able to avoid a fight, basically. So is that the weakness of the chaos list that I've put together? And is it possible to mitigate those weaknesses by tweaking it? What do I need in the list to stop the enemy getting away from me? Because if it comes down to a fight, it's going very well. The enemy can't escape, I'm just murdering them. But if they can escape, obviously they just run rings around the dragon, and then they can pick off my more susceptible to dying units, and my dragon can't reach anything because they're all skirmishers, and my units are not skirmishers, so they can't escape. I can see why people take things like the Marauder Horsemen skirmishers, because they are skirmishing and they can just hide quite well from things, and they're just good in general, but it's not a unit I've currently got access to. But I can see why people lean that way. I can also see why people go the multiple dragon route, because you've got points denial. Dragons are very tough to kill, and they're also a big threat. The more of them you have, the more angles you can close down. It makes it harder for the enemy to escape as well. For example, if you have 1 Chaos Lord and a Warp Fire Dragon. And you can also take a Sorcerer on a dragon as well. That's a bit cheaper. So you could have 3 dragons in there. You could also take the special named dragon, who's that Goal Rock. Is that his name? You could take one of those. More dragons. But do I want to be the triple dragon guy? I don't know about that. I think I like to put out an army that looks like an army, which the Chaos Warriors do, but are they going to work against the current skirmish-heavy, high-level meta? In the first event I went to with this similar army, the game that was the most struggle to try and get a win was against the Skaven, possibly, because they had lots of skirmishers that were able to avoid my charge arcs and teleport out of my charge arcs as well. And I only just about caught up with them by the end of the game and was helped by a wizard blowing himself up as well in that game. So the seeds were planted for difficulty against skirmish armies. Levitia says, your big block needs a way to survive a dragon attack so you can reign freely with yours. That is definitely the case, because my big warrior block is too expensive to be left alone against a dragon, because it will not win. So I either need to break it down into smaller, cheaper chunks so that an enemy dragon is only going to be trying to eat things that are equivalent value to the things I'm eating. I need to maybe bring another dragon, or I need to make the unit a threat to dragons so that they don't want to engage it. So those are some things to consider going forward, because you are going to meet lots of lists with dragons in them and lists with skirmishers in, so you've got to plan accordingly. So here are the pictures of the other armies at the event. The Skaven that I faced, very stylish. I'm pretty sure this army won one of the awards for the best painted armies. Very nice. Then we've got some Chaos Warriors. With these are much more modern, obviously, than mine. We've got some, I think these are Age of Sigmar Dark Oath, aren't they? Which are very stylish marauders. We've got a dragon. Which dragon is this, by the way? Because this one's very cool. We've got some of the... They are the modern dragon ogres, but I think they've been given different heads. Do they come with these helmets, or are they from something else? Because I don't think I've seen them with these heads before. That looks pretty cool. Then we've got some dwarves. You'll have seen these before on the channel. Very well painted, especially the characters. You can see like the gems are very good. The book, very cool. Always competing for the top painting prizes, this army. We've got some more Chaos Warriors with a dragon and a giant spawn. So this is a really cool model, but this is way too late for me to use as a giant spawn. What I'm currently looking for actually is the 1996, I think, Great Unclean one. The metal one that has a big giant sword over his head and he's kind of dragging a chain along with him. The problem is the ones on eBay are like £150 complete. So I'm ideally looking for either a complete one that is reasonably priced, or an incomplete one that I can convert a little bit and make it look more like a giant spawn. I don't mind converting the models. I'm not that precious about them, as long as I'm converting them using either green stuff or parts that are of the same time period. I'm not going to be sticking modern pieces on them. So I wouldn't mind converting an incomplete Great Unclean one. So if anyone has one of those lying around with like an arm missing, then let me know. So I would definitely be in the market for one of those. It would make a good giant spawn. And the Chaos Knights in this army, very cool. And the Cloaked Warriors. So this is a very themed army, this one, isn't it? You've got different helmets on them. They look a bit Zinchian, don't they, with those helmets? Yeah, with the Eye of Zinch there. We've got Empire, which are kind of a Grand Cathay army as well, with pandas. This is one of the armies also always competing for the best painted. Very cool. I think we saw this at the last tournament as well, or maybe the one before that. Then we've got the Dark Elves that I faced as well. Classic models. Classic cold ones before they changed their look. These are the really old ones, I think. There may have been ones before this as well, but this is a pretty cool period of cold ones. Bretonnians. Very stylish, different heraldry on each knight, which is what we want to see. We don't want them all with the same colours. Some nice characters. We've got the mounted yeomen, which are very cool. Wood Elves, I've already seen, because I faced these earlier. Actually, yeah, this is the one that I faced as well, isn't it? With the eagle. I faced two Wood Elves. We've got Tomb Kings and a red bone dragon with lots of graves. Oh, I didn't notice that actually when I was taking the pictures. The little symbols on the graves, that's cool. I wonder if that's related to things that the dragon has killed. That would be interesting to know. Maybe if the player of this army watches this, let me know what those represent there. those things that you've murdered horribly with the dragon. I like this little character with his mask there. That's cool. We've got the nomadic warg, lots of chariots. Very well painted, very professionally done. Very smooth, all the paintwork here, very clean. And nice highlighting. We've got more Bretonnians. Again, very nice paintwork on these. Always nice to see Bretonnians. And these ones, even though they don't have their own individual colour scheme on these knights, they do have slightly different patterns on the horse, which I'll also allow. We've got the Green Knight, who always looks cool. And then we've got some more knights over here. It's nice to see lots of knights on horses for a change, rather than just on a Pegasus. And these guys are very nice as well. And I think this miniature may have been the one that won the best single miniature. Although my Chaos Warrior Standard Bearer did get 3rd place in best single miniature. So I'm going to hope that the judge didn't think that I hand painted the banner, by the way, because it is just a 1996 GW paper banner, which I've just posed and then varnished. There's the other Wood Elves perched on their tray. And we're into the final game against the Bretonnians. Bretonnian Exiles, or Bretonnian Textiles as I sometimes call them, if I want to make fun of them. So, in this game, we're on round 5, and it is open battle again. So I'm just going to crack open this list as well. There we go. Got that list open. So, what have we got here? Oh, by the way, the player of this army apparently has been a viewer of this channel for a very, very long time. So hopefully he's going to be watching this and see if I've got any scathing criticism of the Bretonnian strategies here, which would be very cruel. So let's see what we've got. And when I say long time viewer of the channel, we're talking like way back when I was still doing Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition. So long time. The good old days. I didn't actually do that many battle reports for 8th edition. I did attend one tournament and report that, but it was mostly other kinds of videos I was doing then. I wasn't playing a lot of games, and I mostly started playing more games when I started playing Kings of War and going to more tournaments for that. And then I've just been into some kind of madman since I got to Nottingham a few years ago and just started playing tournaments nearly every week. So this just been ramped up over the years. The amount of games I'm playing is the main difference between now and then. So what have we got in the Bretonnian Textiles list? We've got... So apparently they were all painted very quickly as well, but they're actually very nice. I think there is going to be more like patterns and potentially some designs on some of the banners and shields as well to come. I look forward to seeing that. Because this guy I think looks very cool, as is, with just the highlighting on there. So that's the Battle Standard Bearer. The Battle Standard Bearer, let's have a look, is a paladin on a Royal Pegasus with the Falcon Horn, potentially shutting down flying there quite easily. There is a Gauntlet of the Duel, which I think means you can't turn down a challenge against him. Charmed Shield, Virtue of Confidence. We've got Mounted Yeomen. Let me have a look at them. 6 Mounted Yeomen with spears, short bows. They can do Feigned Flight. And they've got a spellcaster attached to them, who is, let me see, I think it's a damsel, who is on a Bretonnian warhorse, level 2 wizard with battle magic. Then we've got some archers. How many archers do you ask? We have, let's see how many are in the whole list. 2 units of 10 peasant bowmen, skirmishing. Then we've got Pegasus Knights. Obviously, you've got to have Pegasus Knights to be vaguely competitive for Bretonnia. They are just very good at the moment. I think they're a unit that probably needs to change in the game as well, because they have been quite dominant at times. But they're also one of the things that you could argue keeps dragons in check a bit. maybe dragons would dominate even more if, for example, Pegasus Knights lost the skirmish formation, which some people are arguing for. And maybe that would be one less thing to counter dragons, because as it is, they are one unit that can kind of dance around dragons a bit and befuddle them. So, who have we got in this unit? We've got the General, which is this guy, which is the Baron, who has a Lance, Heavy Armour, Charm Shield, Gromril Great Helm, Syrien's Locket, Virtue of Heroism. So, apparently, the Exile's Vow as well. So this guy has Monster Slayer, the monster killing ability. So if you wound a monster, I think it just dies. I think that's what it does on the Baron. Then we've got how many Pegasus Knights in that unit? It looks like 4 there. Is that correct? It's 5. Oh yeah, there's another one there. 5 Pegasus Knights with the Exile's Vow, Banner of the Zealous Knight. There's a champion in there as well. So when I saw this unit, I thought that's a bit dangerous. Maybe I don't want my dragon to potentially fight someone with kind of the monster slaying ability. But I was also quite pleased that the BSB wasn't also in the unit, because that's kind of a Death Star. And if my dragon doesn't want to fight it, then it's going to fight something. And I think that's a lot of lances charging in, with a lot of potential combat res coming just from having a BSB, which they don't inherently have much combat res, being skirmishers, not in close order, obviously. So they do lack a bit on that. So I was pleased that the BSB wasn't also in there for that reason. Taurus Bloodsail, misusing Brigands. It's a shame Scouts got nerfed into the ground. At the last square-based GT I went to, the Brett's player that won had 0 Peg Knights besides his Duke. It can be done. Pegasus Knights are just strong against a lot of things. It depends what you're facing, though. And there's some of the archers, and then we've got 2 cannons, which are the Border Prince's Bombard. We've got 2 of those, so they're like Empire cannons. They're exactly just Empire cannons, but crucially, they don't have engineers, so they're never going to be able to get any rerolls in. Then we've got some Knights of the Realm. So let's see, how many have we got here? Let's see. 9 mounted Knights of the Realm with lances, shields, heavy armour, champion, and a war banner. So potentially quite a good fighting knight unit there, with some nice paintwork on them as well. And they have got, who's that in the front there? Well, they've got a paladin in there, definitely. A basic paladin on a horse, and they've also got, let's see, another, I think is there 2 damsels in the list? I feel like there's 2 spellcasters in here. Oh, one of them is an outcast wizard, so maybe this is the damsel in here, and the one in the skirmish unit is the outcast wizard, which is a level 3 on a warhorse with Ruby Ring of Ruin, battle magic. So that's probably right. So I get the first turn, so let me just go back to the wide shot and tell you about my strategy here. My thought was I might struggle to pin down some of these units, because fast cavalry and flying cavalry and skirmish archers, but we've got static war machines that can be hunted, so there's something that isn't going anywhere. I'm wary of letting things get into, I don't want the big Pegasus Knight block to charge my Chaos Warriors potentially, because they could definitely wipe out the front rank. I don't get to hit back with much, so that would be bad. So I've got my Dragon Ogres for backup around here. My Dragon, looking at deployment, the obvious thing is that the Dragon is just going to go straight for these Knights of the Realm, with a couple of characters in there, and just murder them. Keep challenging, killing a character, and shouldn't take too much damage back because of the Strike Last aura, so should just keep hitting them and eventually kill them, which is a job the dragon can do, but it means the dragon is not then helping against the Pegasus Knights. So we'll see what I can do about that. It depends. if the dragon spends the whole time just babysitting my army, the Pegasus Knights just then choose not to charge because they don't want to get hit by the dragon. They go behind the dragon, and the dragon's just confused and ends up doing nothing. So I think I'm just going to be aggressive with it, go straight for the Knights this time. Saurus says, a Peg Knight unit actually loses to a block of Chaos Warriors like yours. Let's see. So, I've got a static combat res of 5. If they go in, my champion probably is going into a challenge with either the champion or the Baron. Probably the champion, because the Baron wants to just kill models, more models probably. Then, they are going to wipe out, probably, how many would they kill on the charge? The Pegasus Knights on average, with the Baron into these Chaos Warriors. It's only a 4+ save. If it's on the enemy turn, which it probably is, it means I don't have any of my buffs. They could definitely do enough to win the combat, I think. I'm not going to be able to hit back with much at all. I have a static res of 5, so they would have to get more than that. And I think they're capable of it. It would be a risk, though, because the lack of static for the Pegasus Knights, if they have a bad round, they could definitely lose. So, I've put all my Dragon Ogres and the Warriors in one big blob in the middle. And they're just going to walk forward. I'm going to ignore these scouts. Oh yeah, I haven't even told you about the scouts, because for some reason I didn't have another picture of them. So these are Border Prince's Brigands with blunderbusses. So they're actually quite scary when I was hearing about their weapon stats. They get lots of shots and they've got AP. So potentially a nasty unit there. So we're just going to march forward. And the reason we're going to go forwards is because even if everyone else flies away and dances out of my arcs, there's still going to be 2 cannons there to fight when I get there regardless. So I'm going to be able to fight something when I get there. So, on to turn 1, which I get. So I'm going straight up there, keeping my knights out of charge range of the enemy knights, but putting my dragon within charge range. So if you want to charge my dragon and just start the fight a turn early, that's fine by me. And because I go first, it means I can fly because the horn hasn't been blown into yet. And I decided to just be bold. The Pegasus Knights, which you can see moved forward a bit with their little vanguard move as well. I decide, you're going to charge me wherever I go, so I'll just come to you. So I'll go right in front of you. You can charge whoever you want out of this. You can charge any of these 4 units. A Shartak, the Chaos Warriors, the unit of 3, the unit of 2. Do your worst. Sora says, as Bret Exiles player myself, those warrior blobs are a nightmare for me to deal with unless I can multi-charge. I can understand that, because if you don't roll well, you just don't have the static combat resolution. But in a unit that's this wide, you would get everyone in as well, so you would get quite a few attacks. And the Pegasus has got a pretty good hoof attack as well, hasn't it? It's better than horse, I think. The Chaos Warhorse is actually decent. I think it's strength 4, which the Pegasus probably is. Is a normal Warhorse strength 3? Maybe. So, I don't know at this point where they're going to choose to charge. They could hit any of the units. And with the little arc finder thing, we determine that because there's like 3 models in the unit that lie partially in the front arc of this unit. So they're actually in the front arc of everybody. So they wouldn't be able to hit anyone in the flank. They'd be in the front on all the units. Which seems weird when you look at how this is set up. But because of the way the lines of sight and the arcs are, the front arc just touches 3 models, and that's most of them, so they are in the front. But they're Pegasus Knights, so they can charge any direction anyway, so they don't care about that. So who would you charge as these Pegasus Knights, or would you just flap over my head? Because you can see one of them's already dead, because I used my magic missile when I moved forward 12 inches. Magic missile one of them to death. So they're probably going to want to get into a fight rather than just let me spin round and magic missile them again. So who would you charge? The warrior block, the Shartak, the 3 Dragon Ogres, or the 2 Dragon Ogres? Yeah, so with my 2 magic missiles, killed one of the knights, which is great. And I feel pretty good about this at the moment, because I've taken out one of the Pegasus Knights. They're already weaker. Then the big unit of Knights of the Realm are going to struggle to get out of the way of my dragon now. Even though the horn's now been blown, so I can't fly, so my charge isn't quite as long. Turn 1, well, it's been blown momentarily anyway. So, the Pegasus Knights with Baron decide to charge into the 2 Dragon Ogres. I think because it's the easiest meal, And also because they can then overrun past them, I think. So they charge in there. They're able to, because the Baron's on a slightly wider base, they're able to line up 3 onto them. Yes, it does depend on the Baron loadout, depending what you're kitted out to kill. The Knights move forward a bit, and they are happy to be double charged, apparently. The blunderbusses and the BSB and the yeomen are hanging out around here, ready to shoot up the warriors or the Shartak. And the cannons are ready to fire as well, because they could easily just kill 1 Dragon Ogre a turn each, because they are a threat. And with some shooting, the Shartak takes some wounds, takes 2, so he's down to 2 wounds. There's a pillar of fire next to him as well, which is going to go through my whole army probably. 2 Chaos Knights get shot down as well by I think it's a fireball from this mage. The 2 bombards misfire in the first turn, but they do not explode. So they just can't fire this turn. They will be able to fire again next turn, but got away with 1 there. In combat, the Baron misses with all his attacks. The monster-slaying Baron just fails to hit with anything. And as a result of that, the Dragon Ogres actually end up winning the combat by 1. Because none of them die, and I kill a Pegasus Knight. I have close order, because I've still got 2 Dragon Ogres. They do not. So I just win the combat. And they only give ground, so I go after them, and now I'm going to be able to charge them with something else next turn. So very unfortunate for the Baron to just fail with all his attacks. But he's letting the team down. Turn 2 for me. So the dragon charges in with, you can see my Eye of the Gods, I've got extra attacks built up here, which is good. Charge into the Knights of the Realm. My Chaos Knights decide not to join in because there's only 3 of them left. So it's too much of a risk, I think, now. And I end up winning the combat with the dragon by 2 because I get the maximum and kill, I think it was the unit champion in the first round. And the Bretonnians had some static res, but only 4. Saurus Blood says, if you find you are taking the Monster Slayer Baron, you want the 3 lucky heirlooms and just fish for 6s. Some advice there for the Bretonnian players out there. So, my Dragon Ogres, the unit of 3 charges in, but again I end up in the front of the Baron, so I didn't get the maximum number of attacks. I'd only got 1 supporting attack from these 2. But it was still enough to win. You can see they're down to 1 Pegasus Knight on 1 wound. And the Baron, I win the combat, lose 1 Dragon Ogre. They fail their leadership, run away, and I do not catch them. They go through the peasants. So the Baron not having the best of times, Pegasus Knights are finding out that Dragon Ogres are not an easy meal. And my Chaos Warriors... So I wasn't confident, because I thought this turn surely the Baron's going to do better and could actually beat my 2 units of Dragon Ogres, and then I would maybe give ground and they would not follow up on me, so they could then charge into my Chaos Warriors if I exposed a flank to them or a rear perhaps. And I was concerned about that, but it obviously didn't go that way. So because of that I turned my Chaos Warriors sideways so that I would be charged in the front, which is not enticing when you've already lost some of your Pegasus Knights. So, I'm accepting the fact that I'll be shot in the flank with a cannon. I'm not too concerned about that, because it's a big unit. I can take some losses. Turn 2 for the Bretonnians. There's a pillar of fire hanging out in my lines, doing slow damage. The Baron and the Pegasus Knight succeed in rallying, and they get back into the action. So, this surprised me a little bit. I thought the 1 Pegasus Knight would just try and preserve his points and just hide from me. But there must be a plan in mind. So if my opponent watches this, let me know what the plan was for the Pegasus Knight, whether you're blocking potentially me getting through. The Baron is just hanging out there as well. He doesn't mind if he gets charged by any of these, because surely he's going to do better next time he's in combat. And all the shooting, you can see I've lost 1 Dragon Ogre out of this unit, and the other one's down to 1 wound. The Shartak is... Hold on, did I have a good picture of what he was doing last turn? Oh yeah, because he's fighting these peasant archers, He kills a couple of them, and then they give ground, and he follows into them, so he's still fighting them on this turn. On this turn, he beats them again, they run away, but I don't pursue, because what I want to do is restrain and face into these yeomen, and face into the wizard there. Because if I charge the wizard, I shut down the dispels, which means I'm more likely to get my magic missiles off from my Chaos Warrior unit. And if they flee, then you're fleeing, so you also can't dispel. So I restrained with the Shartak and didn't pursue the remaining 3 archers, because they're not worth that much. The dragon wins again against the knights and is pushing them very close to the table edge now. So, in the next turn, my opponent does not actually accept a challenge, and I think that is wise. Not because it's going to get a character sent to the back, but because you're so close to the table edge that you actually want to lose 3 knights so that there's a rank missing. Because if that back rank is there and you lose combat again, you automatically die. Unless you roll a double 1 on a fallback in good order, in which case maybe you survive, but pretty much you're dead. So you actually don't want to accept the challenge because you want to lose more models, which is really weird concept. But I think that's what my opponent goes for. Whether it's intentional or not, only my opponent will know. So if you're watching, you can let us know. So winning the combat there. Into my turn 3. So the dragon does chomp quite a few knights, and they run off the table. They just full on fail their leadership, despite the fact that they were slightly further from the edge because the back rank got eaten. They still end up dying. The dragon does not end up reaching the edge of the table, just about, so it stays on the table, which means it can get cannoned potentially. It's not a Shartak, it's just a regular Dragon Ogre charged into the one Pegasus Knight there, and the Knights went into the front of it, and that sandwich killed the Pegasus Knights. I am ignoring the Baron because it can pretty much do what it wants. My Chaos Warrior Blob turns around and magic missiles the Blunderbuss unit because my Shartak got into the flank of the Yeoman, who, with the stand and shoot, did not do 1 wound to it. It only had 1 wound left, so it was a risk. But I made my save from the stand and shoot, or it just didn't wound me either way, and then I won the combat, chased them down, killed the whole unit with the wizard, with a Shartak on 1 wound. So, fun times there, and the Dragon Ogre's on the hill. The unit of 2, let me just have a look where they were. So, they charged one of the cannons. So they killed a cannon on the hill, and they're now turning around to face this way. So, it's not looking great for the Bretonnians going into their turn 3. Also, by the way, my opponent and friends that my opponent came with, they had a train cancelled as well. So they actually had to go before the award ceremony, and we knew that beforehand because they must have got a notification telling them one of the trains was cancelled, so they had to get an earlier one, otherwise they just wouldn't get home. So, rather than knowing that we had the full 3 hours for the game, we were trying to play a bit faster, just so they could get out there with the games actually finishing on time. But I do play fast. I play games fast. That's what I do. I think I've got the land speed record for playing a game of Old World with my dwarves, where I took like 8 minutes for my turn. Some obscenely low number of minutes for all my turns anyway. So I do play quickly. And I think I'm actually going to do a video sometime on how to play Warhammer faster. I think that would get some good views. That's good clickbait, isn't it? There are some genuine tips in there. And there's some things that people don't generally do that I think would speed up their gameplay. I see people counting out dice a lot, for example, when you could have a set number of each colour of dice in piles, so you always know how many dice you've got in each pile based on colour, and then it's very easy to roll them that way. You see that a lot in Kings of War, actually. That's what I do in Kings of War. Speed things up. So that's just one of maybe a top 10 tips, top 10 ways you could play Warhammer faster, coming to the channel soon. I think that would be a good video, because there are people that take a long time to play. Turn 3. Levitia says, boy do I need advice in that regard. There are people out there that need advice on how to play faster, and not necessarily because they spend a long time thinking, but some people do. So there's ways you can improve that as well. But practically like the thing with the dice. Just knowing how many dice you've got speeds things up as well. So there will be some practical tips as well as mental tips. And just things you can do outside of wargaming that will just make you faster at decision making in general. Okay, so the BSB goes after the lone Shartak with 1 wound left in this turn, and the Baron goes for the lone Dragon Ogre. Just trying to scoop up some good points there. We've got Berg in the chat who loves battle reports, or maybe specifically this one. But I'm gonna assume all battle reports on this channel, because it's nothing but red hot, spicy, succulent, juicy, tender, moist, succulent, finger licking, good, dishlicious, non-stop action. So the 3 archers do actually rally, and they're kind of looking at each other like, do we want to get back into the battle? We just got run off by a Shartak. And yes, they do. They rally. And Dragon Ogre down. Shartak down. So the Bretonnians have some kills on the board. And the blunderbusses move away from the Chaos Warriors a bit, I think. Oh, they don't do too much to them if they're shooting at me. And my turn next. So turn 4. Let's see. So the Dragon Ogre charges into these archers and devours them. Well, devours them a bit and then they run away. The dragon positions itself here. So at this stage, we're coming towards the end of the game because there's not that much stuff left. And I'm thinking, this is a Bretonnian Baron who is built for monster killing. It's the last game of a tournament, and neither of us are going to finish on the podium because of previous results. So why don't I just try and create a cool battle, a duel for the ages. So the Chaos Dragon, I just move here, stare at the Bretonnian Baron, and lay down the gauntlet and say, come over here and fight me with your monster killing ability, and we'll see who wins. So we'll see if the Bretonnian Baron is brave enough to take that on in a moment. So the dragon pokes its head out, says, hello Mr. Baron, would you like to come and fight me? And the archers get run off by the not the Shartak, it's just a regular Dragon Ogre. The 2 Chaos Knights are just running away a bit, because there's only 2 of them left, there's not much they can do now. And my warrior blob with the sorcerer finishes off the blunderbusses with magic missiles. I'm ignoring the BSB who's behind these woods up here. So, what do you think? Do you think the Baron's going to take that charge on? Would you do it? Yes. So, the charge is taken on by the Baron. We're going to get the epic duel of the ultimate Chaos Dragon of Doom versus the monster-slaying Baron of Doom. And everyone else is just going to be doing a bit of shooting, trying to shoot down the Chaos Knights. And as you can see, it doesn't go well for the Baron. So, my Chaos Lord does get to go first because of the enchanting aura. Does not kill the Baron with his attacks though. Puts him down to like 2 wounds. The Baron gets to swing with his monster slaying ability, but does not get any of the wounds through. So the Baron has just had really poor attack rolls for the entire game. The rest of the army's been hit and miss, but the Baron has just been really bad. So then the Stomp takes another wound off him. He runs away, and the Chaos Lord on Dragon catches him and eats him. Wow, wow, wow. So we did get an epic duel. The Dragon got to do some fighting, which is always fun. And there's not much left to happen in the game. So at this point we decide, because obviously my opponent needs to get out of there, let's try and wrap it up quicker. So let's just see what was going to happen in the other turns. So all I'm going to be able to do is try and magic missile off the BSB who's hiding in the corner. And these archers are obviously going to get killed. And then my opponent can try and shoot down maybe a Chaos Knight with some archers. And the only thing that ends up happening is these archers here get killed. Cannon's still alive, the archers are still alive there, the 3 of them. And the BSB is still alive because I did not successfully do anything to him with the missiles, so he's still up. And I've got most of my army left alive. Lost some Dragon Ogres though. So, the final result of that game is, let me just see what the final score was on here. So, in round 5. So the scores up to that point, I had a 12-8 loss to Wood Elves, another 12-8 loss to Wood Elves, and then a very much more satisfying game against the Skaven, which was an 18-2 win. Obviously just murdered loads of rats. Round 4 was an even closer game against the Dark Elves than the Wood Elf game, so that was an 11-9 loss to the Dark Elves. A very close game there, but again, not a lot of action. And then round 5, plenty of action against the Bretonnians. They weren't able to get away from my dragon, so that ends up as a 17-3 win for the Chaos Warriors. So 2 big wins, 3 extremely narrow losses against the same types of armies. So obviously that is the weakness of the Warriors of Chaos list that I've built, is skirmishing armies and armies that can use magic to teleport away from you as well. Anyone that can get out of your charge arc, basically. So, what do we do to the Warriors of Chaos to fix that? What do I add? What do I paint? What comes in? Let me know in the comments afterwards as well as you've been doing in the chat. What do you think in the comments is the best way for this list to be tweaked without totally overhauling it? I don't want to just run the same chaos list everyone runs. So what tweaks would you make to make it more effective against skirmish armies? Do you think I need to bring in the Infernal Puppet? Do you think that's necessary to stop units just teleporting out of my arc? Do you think that's required? Do you think I need something else in the Chaos Warriors? Do you think I need to split them up? Do you think I need to change things drastically even? Let me know what you think. I have got potentially a Demon Prince to paint. I've got 2 chariots to paint. I've got some heroes, one on foot, one on a horse. Do I potentially put a hero on a horse with the knights? Do I get more knights? Do I get dogs? Do I get another dragon? Do I get a giant spawn? What do you want to see in there? Do I get harpies? Can you even take harpies in Warriors of Chaos? Let's have a look. Let's find out right now. I'm going to crack open an army list on New Recruit, the app, right now. So we can have loads of different characters. In core, we can take Marauders, Warhounds, Forsaken, Marauder Horsemen. So we've got lots of core options, but not lots of things that are available to me. I'm going to have to look for alternative models, some of which we've had suggestions for, like Centaurs. Would be cool to get some of those. Cooper says Infernal Puppet might be necessary. Bunker seems to work. Warhounds to deny charge marches, in my opinion. So Warhounds is something I'm definitely looking at as well. I'm looking at either the old 80s or 90s Warhounds or the 90s Fleshhounds to use as Warhounds because they look really cool. So they are definitely something I'm looking at actively. Then in special, what else do we have? The Chaos Spawn. I don't think the normal Spawn is something people really take. Chariots, definitely. I've got some of those almost ready to go when they're assembled and painted. A Chimera in special. That's interesting. Let me have a look at the stats for the Chimera. It's just a monster. Or a monstrous creature, actually. Toughness 5. 6 attacks at strength 6. And that's going to fly 10 as well, isn't it? Yes, that's vaguely interesting. Chimera. That could be the kind of thing I could find a really old model for. 180 points. I don't really see anyone taking them, though. Then we've got... What else have we got in the rare section? Giants. The Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, which I haven't seen people running, so maybe that's not good. Gigantic Spawn of Chaos, you see them everywhere, so I definitely need to get one of those. I just need to find something to either use or convert into one. Gore Beast Chariots. I haven't really looked into those. Hell Cannon doesn't seem to be very popular. Warpfire Dragon is very popular, 375 points for a dragon that is not quite as good as obviously a Chaos Lord and a dragon. But not only is it good in combat, it's also got a bit of a long range attack as well. So that's potentially good. And also it doesn't take up character points because it's in the rare section, so you can run that with other dragons quite easily. So we've got some potential there, but I didn't see any harpies, so it sounds like you can't take them. In mercenaries, you've only got ogres and a bone grinder giant. Giant's not very popular, unfortunately, but a giant is something I could definitely get and chaos up at some point. I could get an old giant and do something with that, so that could be fun. So we've got options, so let me know what you think anyway. And there'll be more battle reports coming soon. What I'm actually going to do, for anyone who's still watching now gets the spoiler, I'm going to do a battle report soon where I just take a dragon on its own against a normal army. Like, not an army that's been tailored to defeat a dragon, because that would just be silly. But just a normal Warhammer kind of tournament style army against one dragon and see how it goes. Just as an experiment, because I theorise that a dragon would win quite a lot of games against normal armies. If that was legal and people started doing it, I think people's lists would counter dragons very well after a while, because you could just build the massive combat res blocks and that's it, and just hide everything else behind the block. So I think it wouldn't be a long-term thing if it became legal that anyone could do. But that's why I think increasing the points on dragons wouldn't stop them dominating. I think they're just too good anyway. I think you need to limit or remove triple save, maybe get rid of swift stride on certain things, maybe reduce the number of wounds that dragons have. So still keep them really powerful and cool, but take away some of the stuff that's just a bit too much. I also think skirmishers need to change as well. But that's for another time, because this has been long enough. However long we've been going, 2 hours 41 minutes. I think that's reasonable. We've had plenty of red hot spicy tactical analysis. Alicia says that was awesome, entertaining battle report. Cooper says thanks for the video. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe, of course. Don't forget to check out all the social media shenanigans in the description. And obviously, if you want to pay for me to attend more tournaments, then why not pledge all your life savings in the PayPal or Patreon links down there? Because all that does go straight into the hobby budget, which mostly pays for tournament tickets. I just bought all my tickets for the next, 8 months of events, so that's quite expensive. And other than that, you can look forward to more battle reports to come, more tournaments. If I check my tournament calendar, I've got a couple of weeks with no tournaments, and then I think we've got, in the next month or two, we've got loads of Old World, Age of Sigmar, Star Wars Shatterpoint, and Kings of War coming up. All 4 of those systems, going to have tournaments for those reported on. So if you're a fan of any of those, you'll be eating well. And later in the year, there's loads as well. So it's just kind of non-stop. I'm trying to do 1 Old World, 1 Age of Sigmar, 1 Star Wars Shatterpoint, and 1 Kings of War every month where possible. Kings of War are sometimes difficult to find, because there aren't that many of them around here, and I don't really need to travel far for events, because I'm in the heart of Nottingham and there's just events constantly. You can't roll out of bed without falling into a tournament almost around here. So, plenty of content to come, plenty more painting to do. Hopefully it cools down a bit. The temperature does limit the amount of painting I do in this room, because it does get quite warm and I don't want the fan blasting on the paint while I'm working. So we'll see how much of that I get done. I'm going to start assembling miniatures, because I don't really need my painting light on to do that, so I can do that in the warmth. I might start assembling some of my Chaos Chariots, because they're going to be fun to use. I need to get a wizard to put on one of them as well. Okay. Yeah, no, too ahead of myself now. Okay, let's wrap this one up. Thanks for watching, everybody, and all that remains to be said is good night out there. Whatever you are. Unless you're a Wood Elf skirmishing model, in which case, you do not get a good night.